Chapter 1. At the young age of 4, Izuku Midoriya discovered the world was not fair, quirkless, bullied and kicked into the dirt more times than he could count. He was Deku, the worthless, quirkless loser. Nobody respected him, and his best friend had turned into the worst of his bullies. To say his outlook on life was good would have been a lie, to say the least. Then again, at the age of 10, Izuku relearned this lesson. After all, he did indeed have a quirk, one he had never quite expected to have. After all, what's stronger than being able to give and take quirks in a world that was based off of them? Izuku Midoriya's story began after standing up to his friend for the first time. The boy in question had turned into what could only be described as a villain. He flaunted his power over others by beating them into the ground with his quirk, Explosion. One day, after being shoved back by his childhood tormentor, Izuku felt it first, then saw it. A string coming from Bakugo, he could sense it, and he felt compelled to pull. The very essence of body screaming to take the thing and rip it from Bakugo, and so he did. The weird thing was that Bakugo stopped after Izuku had ripped the thing from him. He was sitting still, just staring at his hands. Izuku was confused, to say the least. He had never seen this behavior from Bakugo before. Breaking him from his reverie, his ex-friend screamed. "DKU, what did you do?" Bakugo roared before starting to stomp towards the boy. Izuku decided now was the time to flee, so he turned and ran. He didn't stop until he was all the way back home. It wasn't until Izuku had reached the door to stop and consider what he'd done. Izuku could feel the string inside of him, and as if on instinct his body told him to pull it, so he did, and once he had tiny sparks had started to appear in his hands. So that's what he did, Izuku realized. He had stolen Bakugo's quirk. His quirk lets him steal quirks. The irony of the situation was not lost on the boy. He was no longer a worthless, weak Deku. He was strong, and Bakugo was the Deku now. He finally brought himself out of his thoughts and opened the door to see his mother in the kitchen cooking. Calling out to her, he said, "Mom, Mom, look at my quirk." Izuku created tiny sparks from his hands while he said that, showing her his new quirk. The face on the woman went from joy to confusion to shock at the sight. "Izuku, isn't that Katsuki's quirk? Or do you just happen to have the same one, dear?" Inko said, quite surprised, as the odds of the latter seemed astronomically low since neither her nor her husband had a quirk even remotely similar to that. "That's not my real quirk, Mom. My real quirk lets me steal quirks. I took Bakugo's so he couldn't bully people anymore," Izuku explained. The house phone began to ring after her son finished telling her about his quirk, but she was sure she knew who was calling right now. "Izuku, we need to talk about this. Stealing from others is wrong, even if they were being bullies." She sighed, grabbing the phone, noticing the name on caller ID. "Hey, Mistuki, I already know what you're calling about. Izuku just told me about what happened." "Yeah, your son stole my brat's quirk. Inko, I don't think I need to say how scary of a quirk your son has. Katsuki has been crying ever since he got home. Do you know if Midoriya can return quirks, or is it permanent? If he can you make him give it back to Katsuki, please?" Mitsuki stated in a manner that sounded more defeated than actually angry. "Yeah, I was just about to talk to him about it. I'll figure out how exactly Izuku's quirk works before you get over here." Inko sighed again, realizing this was going to be a long night. "Thanks, Inko, we'll be right over," Mitsuki said as she hung up. "Izuku, please tell me everything that happened and what you know about your quirk. We need to figure out if you can give quirks back before the Bakugos get here," Inko explained to her child. Izuku paused before responding. "I can sense strings. I just pulled on it and I took it from Bakugo. I have to physically touch someone, I think. As for giving it back, I have no idea if I can, Mama, but I don't want to give it back to him. He's just going to start abusing people with it again. He's a bully, Mom. Bullies shouldn't have powers if they are going to misuse them," Midoriya explained to his mother. "Izuku, you aren't the law. You don't get to decide who does and doesn't get to have quirks. Please don't fight me on this." The woman was done with this conversation. At first, Izuku didn't want to give it back, but the more he thought about, the more he realized that she was right. "All right, Mom, I'll give it back, but I want to set some rules before I do. I want him to stop being a bully at the very least." Izuku finally relented. 30 minutes passed before there was a knock at the door. Assuming it to be the Bakugos, Inko went to the door before opening it. She was greeted with the sight of Masaru looking at Izuku with fear, Mitsuki looking bored more than anything, but their son Katsuki? He just looked dead. He must be crushed without a quirk, she realized. I'm sorry we had to meet like this, but please come in. I have tea for all of you if you want some. Inko said while ushering them in and onto the couch. Masaru was notably giving Izuku a wide berth, Inko noticed. Mitsuki took a sip of her tea before speaking. While I do wish we were meeting under different circumstances, we do need to take care of this, Inko. Izuku, can you tell me what exactly happened earlier today? Izuku began twirling his thumbs together. Well, Bakugo was threatening me with his quirk, and then when he shoved me I saw a string coming from Bakugo, so I pulled on it, and suddenly I had his quirk. That's all that happened really. Izuku put his head down after. Mitsuki looked at her son before continuing. Did you attack Izuku, Katsuki? Yeah, I attacked that stupid Deku. He thought he could be a hero without a quirk. It was for his own good. Now he has that evil villain's quirk that only lets him take from others. Bakugo cringed from hearing the boy say his name earlier and not Kakin for some reason that hurt him inside, but then the fire returned. You hear that, DKU? You're a fucking villain, you hear me? You're a fucking freak with a freak's quirk. Everyone in the room froze from the sheer venom dripping from the boy's speech. The language excluded. Mitsuki was speechless hearing her son talk like that. She hit him on the head. Katsuki, never speak like that again, and your quirk isn't evil, Izuku. What happened sounds like it was an accident. Can you try giving it back, please? Izuku was still trying to collapse in on himself to get away from Bakugo, but he heard his name spoken, so he knew he couldn't avoid this conversation. I can try, but I don't want to get exploded anymore. Can you promise to stop using it on me, Bakugo? Mitsuki looked at her son after a large amount of time passed without him speaking. Well, Katsuki, no fucking way I'm going to put down this villain before he has the chance to steal even more quirks. Bakugo was glaring daggers into Izuku. Katsuki, she slapped her son again. I will not tolerate you threatening to kill Izuku. What the hell is wrong with you? Bakugo was rubbing his face from the slap. Look what his fucking quirk can do. He could take the quirk of everyone in here by just touching them. Izuku started crying after hearing what his ex-friend said. He knew they were never going to be friends again, but he wanted to kill me. I don't want to give it back if he's going to do that. Izuku was rubbing his eyes. Inko just looked between the two children, before stealing her gaze and looking at her friend's ex-son. Katsuki, if you touch my child, I swear nothing will stop me from getting you. The gaze horrified the boy. He'd never seen Inko look like that. Masaru finally decided to step in. All right, everyone, let's please calm down. We're getting too heated here. Let's take a minute and calm down. A tense silence passed before Mitsuki spoke. All right, it's clear things have become strained between the two of you, but Katsuki, you will promise to stop hurting Izuku. I don't care about his quirk. Do I make myself clear? Bakugo looked to the side. Fine, old hag. Deku, give me my fucking quirk back. I won't use it on you. Izuku shakily held his hand out, but as he did, a thought occurred to him. Something so wrong, so out of character, he can't believe he was thinking it. This was his quirk now, and there was no way Bakugo was going to listen to his mother. Plus, his mother had a point. They had no way of knowing if Izuku could even give quirks back, though he was pretty certain that he could. On top of that, Bakugo just threatened to murder him if he got his quirk back. I'm not taking that risk if I don't have to. Besides, this was payback for the years of torment Bakugo inflicted on Izuku. I don't know if I can even give it back, but I can try. Take my hand, Bakugo. They sat like this for 10 minutes while Izuku pretended to give his quirk back. On the other hand, Izuku definitely knew he could return quirks now. After he initiated physical contact with Bakugo, he felt the ability to push the string back into the boy if he wanted to. I'm so sorry, Izuku stammered out. I don't think I can do it. Katsuki just deflated at those words. Izuku had never seen the boy look so pale, but after what he did and said today alone, he felt he more than deserved it. Hopefully with some time without a quirk, and he'll learn to be a better person, although Izuku did feel a little guilty about it, but he figured he could just hold on to it for a few weeks before giving it back. It was Mitsuki's turn to chime in. All right, well, it seems we won't be getting anywhere today, but please keep trying to find a way to give his quirk back, Izuku. You know it was everything to Katsuki, and without it, well, just look at him. Izuku cringed after seeing the look on Bakugo's face. Maybe he should just give it back now. No, this will be a good learning experience for him, Izuku finally decided. It's definitely not because I want to keep it or anything, he told himself. The Bakugos stood to leave, but Katsuki was just staring at the floor after a little more time passed, and his parents realized he was in shock. Masaru grabbed his hand and led Katsuki from the house. Mitsuki just said a sad goodbye to Inko before they left. Inko looked at her child in various levels of intrigue and fear, realizing just what her son was capable of. Izuku, you must keep your quirk a secret, honey. Imagine what people will think of you if they found out you can permanently rob them of their quirk by simply touching them. Your quirk is extraordinary, Izuku, but it's also incredibly horrifying, and when dealing with things like that, it's best to handle it with a level of caution, all right, dear? I will love you regardless, but either way, it's time for bed, Izuku. All Izuku did was say I love you in kind and walk off to bed, but little did they know that this wouldn't be kept secret for very long. The next morning, as Izuku made it to the school next morning, but for some reason everyone was giving him hushed looks and whispering behind his back. He was used to bullying and being made fun of, but this was very different from the usual. Confused, he walked over to one of his classmates in order to ask them what was going on. The person in question just looked at Izuku in fear and screamed, running away, begging him to not steal his quirk. "Oh, Bakugo told everyone about my quirk, I guess. Well, that's fun. That being said, getting left alone is probably better than getting bullied, at least." Other than that, though, he realized his mother was right. Izuku had a villainous quirk, and if he were being honest with himself, he had been using it like a villain. Then again, Bakugo literally threatened to kill me if I gave him his quirk back, so maybe I'm doing the right thing? He was broken from his thoughts when the intercom blared to life. Izuku Midoriya to the principal's office. Izuku Midoriya to the principal's office. The line cut after that announcement. Izuku just sighed in defeat and started walking towards the principal's office. Once he reached the office of the principal, the secretary ushered him into the room of the principals almost immediately. Upon looking into the room, he saw two chairs sitting in front of the principal's desk, one empty, the other occupied by a familiar spiky blonde-haired child with a shit-eating grin on his face. Principal Nakahara, on the other hand, looked livid. "Midoriya, it has come to my attention that an incident occurred at the playground yesterday. Your quirk came in. That's good, but then you used it to somehow steal Bakugo's quirk? Return his quirk at once, Midoriya." The man slammed his hands on the desk when said that last part. If Izuku were being honest, he fucking hated this man. He's covered Bakugo's abuses for the entirety of the time he was here just because he was their star pupil. Hell, the man often blamed Izuku for being the one to start the fight if Bakugo got caught in the act. In his mind, this man was worse than Bakugo. He actively encouraged abuse in his school, and Izuku hated it. However, being wise enough to not voice his opinion, Izuku just sighed before speaking. "Sir, I already had this talk with the Bakugos. I don't know if I can return a quirk once I take it, and even if I could, I have no idea how to do that." The principal slammed his hands on the desk again. "Then find a way, Midoriya. If his quirk isn't returned within 10 minutes, I will be calling the police. You have robbed the future of one of our best and brightest, and if you cannot fix it, then I swear to God, I will bring the vengeance of the law down upon you." Izuku called it, of course. Had this man ever once won a bat for him? No. He just scuffed everything that Bakugo did under the rug, and now that I made Bakugo the Deku, he's lashing out at me for it. Izuku had two choices now. Give it back and they realize he was lying, or double down and have the police called. Since there was no way Izuku could get in trouble for this, Izuku went with the second option. He was literally quirkless until yesterday, and honestly today had just proven his point even further. Bakugo Katsuki does not deserve having a quirk. He's a violent bully that manipulates the people around him and uses his power to stand over them while he kicks them into the dirt. He's a villain, nothing more, nothing less, and now that his favorite toy was taken, he's throwing a temper tantrum just because he can. Izuku just sighed again. "I can try again, sir, but I really have no idea if I can do this." Izuku then went and faked another attempt at giving the boy's quirk back, and after 10 minutes of him trying true to his word, the principal called the police. Izuku wasn't sure what the principal thought this was going to accomplish, though. Izuku is 10 years old, for crying out loud. So there Izuku sat in an office for around an hour, trapped between two people he really would rather not be trapped between. When the door finally opened, Izuku cheered silently. It revealed two people One absolutely tall skeleton of a man with blonde hair and blue eyes wearing a really tacky yellow suit. The other was a much more normal-looking man with black hair and a detective's badge. It was a strange pairing to say the least. The detective spoke first. "Hello, my name is Detective Naomasit Scotchy," he said as he flashed his badge. "We came because of the incident of a child stealing another child's quirk. Which of these two is the one who took the quirk?" The principal responded by pointing at Izuku. "May we borrow your office, Principal Nakahara? We would like to get the boy's statement in private, if that's all right with you." The principal stood ushering himself and Bakugo out of the room. The detective sat down in the chair opposite Izuku and began asking the boy questions. "So, Midoriya, is it true that you took that boy's quirk?" "Yes, it is, but it wasn't on purpose, I swear. In fact, I was considered quirkless until yesterday," Izuku explained to the man. All of that pinged as a truth which greatly relieved the detective. At least the boy didn't do this on purpose, and he only has his hands on one extra quirk. That being said, this child either possesses a quirk similar to All for One or All for One is involved in this somehow. Both options didn't make the man happy. "All right, that's fine then. Can you give the quirk back, Midoriya?" "I don't know if I can. I've only had the quirk for a day, not even actually." The boy lied to the police officer. Well, that's not good, Sukachi realized. "Midoriya, do you want to take a guess at what my quirk called lie detector does?" The man leveled a gaze at the boy. Oh, Izuku was fucked. Satisfied by the look on the boy's face, Sukachi continued. "Things are going to get serious if you don't tell me why you won't return the boy's quirk, Midoriya. I'm sorry for lying, but please believe me, I had good intentions in not giving it back." Izuku stammered out. Strangely enough, that wasn't a lie. The boy genuinely believed he was doing the right thing by not giving it back, and that somehow worried Sukachi more than if it had been a lie. Was the boy delusional or something? "The person I took it from was a bully. He used his explosion quirk to hurt people. I was one of his main victims. I just wanted to keep him from hurting people. I want to be a hero after all. Plus, I figured I would return it in a few weeks at the most. Just enough time to make him get used to being quirkless like the person he used to beat daily. Also, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I feel kind of possessive of the quirk. It's like I hunger for it. I've never felt anything like that before." By the end of it, the detective was both equal parts relieved and appalled. At least this boy wanted to be a hero and not use his quirk to become the next Dark Lord or something. "Izuku, while every single thing you just said was true, and I applaud your bravery in standing up to a bully, this compulsion, can you fight it?" The man asked the scared child in front of him. Izuku nodded. "Yes, but it's kind of hard. Like when you told me what your quirk does, part of me wanted to take it. I'm kind of scared of this feeling, if I'm being honest." For the first time in the entire conversation, the skeleton man spoke. "My name is Yagi Tashinori, young Midoriya. I would like to ask you a few questions. The main one being, why do you want to be a hero?" Izuku paused as he thought for a bit. "I really just want to save people with a smile like All Might. He's my favorite hero." Yagi Tashinori winced as his name was brought up, and he looked over at Sukachi to see a thumbs up indicating that the boy did not lie to him. "That is commendable, young Midoriya, but what you did was akin to vigilantism the way you described it. You took the law into your own hands to deal with a threat and decided that the other boy should not have a quirk. Young Midoriya, you are not the law. You are not even an adult yet. You are a 10-year-old child with a very, very strong quirk." The man scolded the child. "I know, but he threatened to kill me if I gave it back. He called a monster that needed to be put down. I was scared." Izuku shook in fear. Both men exchanged a look. Sukachi confirmed it to be true. Tashinori had a face of sheer rage. "The bullying was that bad? I swear I will look into this, young Midoriya, but you will have to return the quirk. I promise that other boy won't hurt you anymore." That being said, as the incident was the result of an accident, there will be no formal charges pressed, at least for you. Please do not let this incident occur again, as next time we can't explain it away as a mere accident. Izuku leveled the boy with a gaze that made it clear repeat offenses would not end in a similar manner. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Now that he was out of immediate danger, his curiosity returned. Sir, I can kind of see quirks now. They look like strings with unique characteristics that I can pull on to take them. Why do you have 7 quirks? Also, why do they look so weird? They're all wispy and ghosty, kind of like they aren't even really there." The boy asked the skeleton. To which Tashinori coughed blood in sheer surprise. He gave a look to Tsukauchi and decided that this boy needed to now since he will likely be targeted by him in the future because of his quirk. All Might was pretty certain that he had killed the bastard, but they were never able to find the body to confirm his death. Hopefully, it was just one of his followers dragging off the body to bury it, but deep down part of him knows that it wasn't true. Sir, are you okay? You just coughed blood. Izuku grabbed a napkin from the desk and panically handed it to the man. It is simply my old injury flaring up. Do not worry yourself about it. All right, young Midoriya, as there is a high chance that you will be involved in this in the future, I am going to tell you something. You must swear not to reveal anything I am about to say. Do you understand? The boy gulped in response and then nodded. Tashinori buffed up, appearing in his All Might form. Young Midoriya, my quirk is called One for All. It is a sacred torch passed down through the generations, and I am its 8th user. The quirk is 2 different quirks combined, although it appears there may be remnants of the others in the quirk based off of what you just said. Anyway, the first is the quirk to stockpile power, which is why One for All gets stronger with each generation, and the second is the ability to pass itself onto another person. You're probably wondering why I'm telling you all this, my boy. Well, it is because those 2 quirks were combined by another's quirk, one who can give and take quirks. Sound familiar? That man is the world's greatest evil. He's always hidden himself in the shadows, manipulating actions from the shadows, and he has been around for over 200 years now. You get it right? The ability to just take quirks as one pleases. A quirk to stop aging, perhaps? This man has a love for power and uses his abilities to take and control, although I finally defeated him 1 year prior, which is where I got this injury of mine, my boy. I'm sure you understand why we were so worried when we first came in here. Finishing his story, All Might deflated back into his true form. Izuku couldn't believe his eyes. He had been talking to All Might this whole time, and they were just trying to make sure they didn't have another Lord of Darkness on their hands. It finally clicked for him just how dangerous his quirk was. All Might, there's a question I need to ask. Can I be a hero with this quirk? A villain's quirk. All Might just laughed. Boy, no quirk is villainous. Quirks are simply tools to be used, and with yours I'd say you could become one of the best heroes of all time using it. His idol believed in him. Izuku was openly weeping now, and he had no intentions of hiding it. Finally, someone believed in him. Young Midoriya, this was an enlightening conversation, but what if I said I had a proposition for you? How would you like to be trained by me? And as it so happens, I have the perfect way for you to use your quirk completely legally, and it would be beneficial to the police, provided you follow through and actually return young Bakugo's quirk. After hearing that, Izuku couldn't contain himself. He ran out the door, slapped Bakugo's hand, and ran back into the room screaming, "Yes," at the top of his lungs. This was the origin of the pro-hero All for None. Chapter 2. It was the day following Izuku's meeting with All Might. To say his life changed drastically in the last 24 hours would be an understatement. Bakugo got punished for the first time after Tsukauchi talked to the principal about comments that the boy had made. That was the first piece of good news. Second, he was about to be personally trained by the #1 hero, All Might, his idol. Izuku couldn't believe his luck. Funnily enough, Izuku had been expelled by the principal, but he's never been happier. Izuku honestly didn't care about that shithole anyway. Every person at that school had been awful to him. Plus, All Might mentioned he would handle my schooling himself, so Izuku knew it'd be fine regardless. On top of that, the entire school had been threatened by All Might. If they spoke of me or my quirk, they would be sued for spilling a government secret, which Izuku couldn't believe his quirk counted as that, but I guess the original All for One was as well, so it only made sense. Izuku hadn't been able to sleep a wink, but he was still absolutely beaming. With a skip in his step, he put his shoes on and nearly ran out the door. All Might had asked Izuku to meet him at Dagoba Beach, and there was no way he would let the man down or be late. The smile had dwindled a little when Izuku arrived at the beach in question. Was all of this a prank? 'Cause I'm pretty sure this is a garbage dump. He had arrived at exactly 5:59 a.m. 1 minute before All Might had told Izuku to meet him there, and Izuku could see head nor tail of the man. That was until a yellow flash jumped down in front of the green-haired child. Izuku assumed the man had been hiding on the top of one of the piles of garbage, but that honestly didn't matter because now the #1 hero stood before him. It hadn't been a prank after all. Izuku smiled to himself. It's all right now, why? Because I am here. All Might exclaimed, doing his signature catchphrase, and then not so signature, deflating into a shriveled husk of a man and coughing out blood. Izuku grew pale at the sight. Are you okay, All Might? All Might simply replied, I'm all right, my boy. It has been a year since my injury, and I am more than accustomed to it by this point. Anyway, how did you sleep, young Midoriya? Not very well, honestly. I was too excited to sleep. I mean, training with you? People would kill in order to have this chance. Izuku replied, just prove yourself to me, my boy, and you'll have no need to repay me. You have already proven yourself once by returning that bully's quirk. All Might replied, but noticed Midoriya looking rather sheepishly at him. All Might, I need to ask a question that's been really eating at me. Saying nothing, All Might gestured for the boy to go on. Did you offer to train me only because you're worried I'll be the next All for One? I don't know. I don't want you to be training me because you're afraid of me, I guess. Izuku couldn't look the man in the eyes while he said this. All Might paused for a second before responding. No, my boy, you have nothing in common with that vile evil. I had no doubt you would become a hero all your own, but I wish to ease the process as much as possible since as it stands you are basically quirkless, and we need to find you a source of quirks, my boy. While I am slightly hesitant to give you more power, it is, as I said, it is not the quirk that makes one evil. What if I went around destroying buildings and cratering people? Suddenly would I have a villainous quirk? Midoriya nodding along, but secretly very glad. Now as for actually helping you with obtaining quirks, it's actually quite simple really. We're going to have you take the quirks of criminals, death row inmates, or those with life sentences. In this way you are both helping society by removing the quirks of dangerous people who should not have such tools, while also providing you with tools of your own. However, I would recommend picking one quirk in particular to be your actual quirk, my boy. Izuku was confused. Didn't you say it was bad that I did that literally yesterday, All Might? Yes, but it was that very same idea that inspired me to create my own version of it. Keeping Bakugo's quirk from him in order to help society is wrong, but why is that? Midoriya shook his head, not understanding. No idea, All Might. Please call me Tashinori in this form, young Midoriya, but anyway. The difference, my boy, is that while cruel and a bully, young Bakugo is not an actual criminal yet, but murderers, rapists, serial killers? These are all people locked up for committing heinous evil crimes, and society would be better off if they did not have any sword or power or quirk. You can even give them a chance to reintegrate into society by removing their quirk, and if they turn over a new leaf, you can return the quirk to them. It's quite ingenious if I do say so myself. A win-win for everybody involved. We sate your quirk's hunger, so we don't have to worry about you lashing out. Villains are given a chance, and society itself is safer. All Might finished his speech, and Izuku was in awe that his idea could be used in such a manner. So when do we start? The boy asked. Well, young Midoriya, as you do need a quirk to hide your own safely, I have gone ahead and picked out a relatively safe one for you to start with. If you are free today after school, I can pick you up and we can drive to the location. I have Detective Tsukachi waiting for us. I won't spoil the surprise of the quirk you'll be getting, as I believe it'll be more fun this way. However, you are going to have to prove to me that you can be trusted, as I will not be giving you any more quirks for a while. Think of it as a trial run. The person in question is set to be released in 4 years. If you can go that long taking no other quirks and giving his quirk back at the end of the trial run, it will become a weekly thing. In the meantime, to sate your quirk, we will have you take your mother's quirk, then give it back. Does this sound agreeable to you, young Midoriya? The boy understood how big of a risk All Might was taking for him. Tashinori truly believed in him, and Izuku would never let the man down. Yes, sir, Izuku said resolutely. Although first, there is something I wish to test out, young Midoriya. Can you try taking my quirk? All for One was unable to, and I wish to see if your quirk functions similarly to his. Izuku merely nodded and tried to pull at the strings. The wispy things just kept twisting themselves out of his grasp over and over again. After 10 minutes of not being able to take it, Izuku gave up. So it really is the same quirk. Young Midoriya, I must ask, who are your parents? Izuku paused for a moment, not wanting to divulge his family situation, but relented. My father works overseas. His quirk lets him breathe fire. I haven't seen him since I was 4. He left after I was diagnosed quirkless. He hasn't called my mom once in all that time. Or if he has, she's kept it from me. He still sends us money every month, though. My mother, on the other hand, can pull small objects to herself. Honestly, I have no idea why I have all for one. All Might paused in contemplation a moment before responding again. You could perhaps be a great descendant of All for One. It's an amazing quirk. In over 200 years, no one has any quirk even remotely similar to it. Maybe you were simply lucky and some gene in you let you acquire his quirk, or it could have been a random mutation. Such things happen from time to time, but since we have no way to tell, let's not dwell on it. All right then, now we train. The first thing we will be building is your endurance. Then when you are older, we can begin your real training. We're going for a run, young Midoriya. Oh, and I forgot to mention I need to keep you close as part of our deal, so I had to transfer you to a new school district. It's a very good private school, one that can be trusted with our secrets. I will be funding your schooling from now on, and before you worry about the money, do remember I am the #1 hero. I have more money than I could care to do with. Consider it a gift from me for investing in the next symbol of peace. Even though I do not intend to pass my quirk on to you, you will be great regardless, my boy. Izuku started crying. Really, this was the best. All Might was the best. He knew he would need to find a new school, and All Might went ahead and did it for him. Yes, sir. I won't let you down. However, what should I tell my mom? Tell her the truth, my boy. The #1 hero is training you to become the best, and that you're a worthy investment. Izuku broke down even more. Geez, kid, you could stand to cry less, you know? Izuku threw himself at All Might and started hugging the gaunt skeleton of a man. Toshinori wouldn't admit it, but he already cared for the boy. Toshinori ended up driving Izuku to his new school. He was kind of surprised the #1 drove such a shitty car, but then again, I guess it worked, as let the man remain incognito. After all, who was going to guess that the #1 hero drove a beat-up old station wagon? All Might handed him a backpack halfway through the drive. Confused, Izuku opened it, finding it had a ton of school supplies in it, and one of his hero analysis books, number 10 to be exact. I knew you were going to need supplies, as you would likely not have the required materials for this school, All Might stated matter-of-factly. And oh, why don't you open the first page of that book, my boy? Izuku was confused, but did as he was told, and it was signed by All Might. He couldn't believe how much his life changed in the span of a day. Izuku was truly blessed. After a good 30-minute drive, they came within viewing distance of the school. Izuku was shocked. The school was absolutely massive, and he realized that he was now in the rich part of town. Izuku imagined the price to go to this school was astronomical. The golden plaque outside the school read, Semi-Private Academy. He thought the name sounded familiar, but he wasn't 100% certain on that. Izuku and All Might, in his skeletal form, walked up to the gates. All Might hit the comms button next to the gate before they opened, allowing the two entry. Apparently, you needed a key card to get in normally. Izuku was shocked at the level of security being employed by this school, but he thought, I guess that's just how rich people do things. Especially when you can be ransomed off for ridiculous amounts of money, Izuku thought to himself darkly. Finally inside, All Might dropped Izuku off at the teacher's lounge, where he met his homeroom teacher, a woman with jet black hair and a very female office worker kind of vibe going on. She introduced herself as Ms. Yaoyorozu, which was a mouthful to say at the least. Apparently, Izuku was going to be in the same class as her daughter was in, and that she hoped they would get along, as her daughter was kind of a loner due to previous situations she had been through. Izuku just nodded and said he would do his best. Once Izuku finally got to the room, he was forced to introduce himself, and he managed to royally fuck that up. When Izuku stammered out a name that sounded nothing like his own, and a bunch of the students laughed at him for it. Izuku having extremely embarrassing himself in the span of literally 5 seconds. The day went from being amazing to awful, as one particularly loud blonde kid with blue eyes shouted about how students of this supreme academy ought to be able to handle himself in a public setting. Izuku just ignored the guy and went to seat, where he finally noticed what must have been Ms. Yaoyorozu's daughter, because she looked like a carbon copy of their teacher, just aged down a lot. Thankfully, the girl was one of the few people in the room not laughing at him. Yaoyorozu spoke. Don't worry about him, he's an absolute buffoon. Rich people that. Best class of people that. He looks down on everyone. The girl spit out that last bit. She apparently had no like for this boy. Izuku was a bit surprised at first that a girl was willing to talk to him, since none ever had before. Oh well, thanks. Izuku let the end of that drag out. Momo Yaoyorozu. The jerk's name is Monoma. What about you? The girl noticed that the small, scared, green-haired child in front of her did not resemble the wealthy elite at all, and she briefly wondered how he got into this school. Izuku Midoriya, it's nice to meet you, Yaoyorozu. The boy beamed at her. Well, he seemed nice enough, she thought. Likewise. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, that is until lunch. Izuku had just procured his favorite katsudon. Before looking around the cafeteria, Izuku saw Yaoyorozu by herself, and he decided that she seemed nice enough, so he went to go sit down with her. Hello, Yaoyorozu. Do you mind if I sit here? Izuku noticed everyone staring at him like he was an idiot. The girl simply shrugged. He seemed innocent enough, then again, so did everybody else. You may? Thanks. It's super hard joining in the middle of the year when everyone already has their friend circles. Izuku rubbed the back of his head, getting kind of weirded out by the fact the cafeteria had gone nearly silent. Izuku could feel the stares boring into the back of his head, doing his best to ignore them. So what's your quirk, Yaoyorozu? The girl visibly shook when Izuku asked that. He backpedaled immediately. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was a personal thing. You don't have to tell me. The girl looked like she was deliberating something before finally responding. No, it's fine, my quirk is called creation. I can make any non-organic material as long as I know the chemical makeup, and I have enough lipids to generate the item in question. Izuku watched her make a small metal rod appear from her hand. Izuku froze. That was the single coolest quirk he had ever heard of. Izuku felt the familiar hunger in his chest, but he shut that down as soon as it appeared. Holy shit, that's amazing, Yaoyorozu. There are so many ways to use that. Do you mind if I ask some questions? Izuku was about to be lost in his world, but then he realized people were still staring at him, and he could ignore it no longer. Actually, instead, Yaoyorozu, why are they all staring at me? He whispered to the girl. It's because of me, most likely. The last guy who tried to sit next to me, I kicked in the crotch. Yaoyorozu looked pained as she said that. Oh, do I need to worry? Everyone around him was still staring, and it was getting unnerving. That has yet to be seen, Midoriya. So tell me, why did you transfer here from out of nowhere, in the middle of the semester? The girl then shot a look to everyone in the cafeteria. They all slowly but surely returned to their own conversations. Oh, well, I kinda got bullied a lot. It wasn't safe for me there. Izuku was hoping he didn't sound that pathetic. Yaoyorozu looked puzzled. Weird, who would hurt someone who seems so innocent? It'd be like kicking a puppy. Oh, well, it just kinda happened. I tried to stand up for another kid, and I refused to fight back, so they just decided to use me as a punching bag instead. God, please don't let this girl think he's a loser too. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Midoriya. I'll do my best to make sure no one here does anything like that. Yaoyorozu gave him a look of nonchalance. Thanks, Yaoyorozu. So why did you kick that guy in the dick? Izuku watched as Yaoyorozu sputtered out milk while giggling. Izuku was confused. He didn't think he'd said anything funny. Yaoyorozu looked at the confused face on Midoriya for a moment before swallowing what milk she still had left and answered. I knew it. You aren't part of the upper class, are you? We wouldn't be caught dead using any language as crass as that, and it's the second time you've done so. Oh, I see. Is there anything else I should know? Izuku blushed a bit, clearly out of his depth. The girl just laughed. No offense, Midoriya, but the etiquette they teach us takes years to learn. Besides, I like you more this way. It's way more refreshing talking to someone who isn't so stuffy all the time. Also, if you wanted to know why I kicked him in the dick. He was acting like a complete fool. He came over and attempted to court me. His advances were unwelcome, to say the least. Izuku was quickly learning to not get on Yaoyorozu's bad side, but he had a bit of an idea. Is the commoner already being a bad influence on the young miss? We wouldn't want them to corrupt such a noble young lady. Izuku drew out his haughtiest impression. Thankfully, his horrid impression of nobility only seemed to make her laugh more. Momo finally managed to recover from laughing. Well, if you're going to act like that, I may at least give you a few tips. With utensils, you start from the outside and move in. As for why we have 10 utensils, that's because nobility was stupid. It was at that moment Izuku realized he was going to like it here. Izuku was sitting in the passenger seat of All Might's shitty station wagon, wondering where they were going today. As it turns out, Izuku was going to be having his mind blown a lot today. Besides talking to a girl for the first time in years, he was being taken to Tartarus, the Tartarus. Izuku was pretty certain you had to convicted of least a felony, if not outright murder, to get landed in here. Wait a minute, Izuku realized. What if it all was a lie and All Might's just tossing him in here? No, no, there's no way All Might would do that to him. That meant whoever's quirk Izuku was taking must have done some really bad things. All Might wasn't joking when they were going to be using his quirk to better society, and in some ways he was already acting like a hero. After the fifth security check and the constant questioning of why a 10-year-old child was with the #1 hero, they found Tsukachi waiting for them outside an interrogation room. Tsukachi just gave the pair a nod and greeted them. So how are we doing this? Izuku asked inquisitively. Detective Tsukachi responded dryly. The person inside is responsible for second-degree murder and illegal quirk usage. Even if the quirk wasn't an offensive one, it still counts. They swear it was unintentional, but there was evidence to prove otherwise. Since his crime was relatively light compared to the others staying here, as well as having a more appropriate quirk, he was chosen for this test. I doubt you have heard of the villain, as they were relatively unknown, with no priors and no other crimes. They didn't even earn a villain name. He is set to be released in 4 years, having served 16 of his 20-year sentence. Only if he remains obedient, though, at which time you will return the quirk. Tsukachi paused, taking a breath, before continuing. We have chosen this one specifically for multiple reasons. Returning of a quirk after you become attached to it, its relative harmlessness, and finally ease of use. For the next 4 years this will be your quirk. Are you ready, Midoriya? Izuku merely nodded. Good. He is bound and gagged to protect your identity. Just walk in and take it as soon as you are ready. The detective held the door open for them and motioned for them to enter. Izuku saw a man in the standard orange jumpsuit used by most prisons with a black bag over his head and cuffs on his hands. Izuku walked up and hesitantly raised his hand toward the person. The detective then looked at All Might, then back to the child. Tsukachi was admittedly uneasy with this whole setup. He really didn't think loading up a potential new All-for-One with more and more powerful quirks was a good idea, but he had to trust All Might on this. Tsukachi did, however, have to admit being able to permanently remove the quirks of inmates would make transporting them so much easier, and hopefully with this arrangement the boy is less likely to become the next All-for-One. Just go ahead and do it. The detective trying to encourage the boy. Whenever you are ready, my boy. All Might gave the boy a heads up. Izuku finally touched the handcuffed man on the shoulder, and that was that. Izuku felt the new quirk flow into him. Izuku was briefly registering pain as he felt his eyes change, and when he looked back towards the hero and detective duo, they shuddered for a second. Toshinori walked over before putting his hand on Izuku. My boy, are you alright? Your eyes changed. He looked at Tsukachi. I thought you said it would be harmless and easy to use, not change his eye color and hurt the boy. Tsukachi realized his error. Izuku, are you alright? I didn't realize the reason the man's eyes looked the way they did was because of his quirk. Izuku just winced as he opened his eyes tentatively. Everything felt more alive, so to speak. He could see so much more, and while it was disorienting at first, he was adapting quickly. Realizing the other two were worried about him. I'm fine, thank you, Detective and All Might. I was just having trouble adjusting to it at first. Wait, what did you say about my eyes? Tsukachi just sheepishly pulled out his phone, turning on the camera app and handing it to Izuku. The greenette looked on in shock. His eyes had turned completely black. No irises, just black sclera. It was kind of unsettling if you were being honest. How are we supposed to hide this? Eye color doesn't just change overnight. Izuku shouted while panicking. Well, we can fix that, and it's my fault, so I'll front the cost. We will just get you some Halloween lenses to return your eyes to their natural color. The detective said apologetically. Well, that's fine then, I guess. So can we talk somewhere more privately? Izuku asked, pointing at the prisoner. Don't worry, he cannot hear a word we're saying, but sure, let's go to a different room to talk about this. Tsukachi said, guiding them from the room. As they left, a prison guard came in and took the villain away. They simply moved to the next interrogation room over before continuing. Well, I to apologize again, Izuku. The detective said sheepishly. I'll be more careful in my quirk selection in the future. Don't worry, this won't happen again. So tell me, how are the eyes? The quirk was called Ultra Sight. It lets the user change between 6 different visions. Apparently, there is some strain on your eyes if you use one of the enhanced visions for too long, but other than that, it is quite safe. In case you were wondering, the 6 different visions are thermal, radiation, night, zoom, blacklight, and a form of X-ray vision that lets you see through walls, but it apparently only let you see yellow silhouettes of living things to about 30 foot out. All in all, it's a very versatile quirk. It should be perfect for you to practice with. Tsukachi finished his brief explanation completely unaware of what was about to occur due to the information dump he had just dropped on Midoriya. Izuku paused for just a second before exploding into a torrent of incomprehensible words. Omjitsu kulakinus thisimu chand event hawkitsnita combat quor kithisamuch versatilita for example dusitwar klika regular night twijamia. All Might being absolutely blown away by the sight before his eyes, he briefly wondered if his love of quirks is a natural thing, or is it because of his quirks yearning for more quirks? Either way, Tashinori needed this to stop. Midoriya, my boy, calm yourself. Can you even breathe? Izuku stopped his muttering and meekly apologized. I'm sorry, quirks just really excite me, you know? There's so much you can do with them. All Might nodded. I can understand. It's like gaining a new part of yourself, I suppose, but do remember, as of right now, that's a temporary loan. If the man messes up further, it may become permanent. As it stands, you'll only have that quirk until high school at UA, where we can reveal the full function of your quirk. That reminds me. Surprise. Izuku froze when All Might handed him a letter, and on it were the 2 golden letters UA. Izuku paused once more before turning his gaze to his mentor. There's no way this is what I think it is, right? Just go ahead and open it, my boy. Izuku did, and it was a recommendation letter to UA signed by All Might and the principal of UA. If Izuku wanted, he was already accepted. He didn't even have to take the recommendation exam. In fact, it is encouraged that he doesn't due to the nature of his quirk. The principal does wish to meet up with Izuku before he can actually enroll at the school to learn about him and his personality firsthand. Honestly, though, it was more of a formality than anything. For all intensive purposes, he has been accepted into UA at the age of 10. Izuku can feel just how badly the school/government don't want to let him become a villain. It's as if they're saying, we'll do whatever you want to help, just don't turn into something evil. Which kind of soured Izuku's feelings of accomplishment, but he decided to just say fuck it and roll with it. If they're going to give me privileges, might as well make use of them. The boy jumped forward, pulling the number 1 into an intense embrace, thanking the man for everything he's done for him. Izuku returned home later with the pair of contact lenses Tsukachi had gotten for him in hand. Izuku sauntered into the living room looking for his mother. He wanted to show her his new eyes in order to let her know it's all going to be okay now. Izuku hadn't gotten the chance to tell her everything that happened after all. Mom, I'm back. The quirk stealer called into the house. His mother appeared and pulled him into a hug. Honey, I got a call from All Might's secretary about him taking you on as a successor. I'm so proud of you, honey. You're going to do great. Oh, what happened to your eyes, dear? Inko stopped speaking, only staring deep into the black abyss that were her son's eyes now. It's my trial quirk. Izuku responded brightly. I can see all kinds of things now, through the walls, in the dark, great distances. I can even see heat signatures. It's an amazing quirk. Inko was a little shocked. She hadn't expected her son to be given another quirk so soon. But after her son explained why, she realized why it had happened so fast. Izuku needed to have a quirk to hide his original. Did All Might get it for you? Inko asked. Yeah, I'm already using my quirk to help people, Mom. It's great. I took the quirk of a murderer, so he can't use it to hurt people anymore. Oh, and on top of that, I've already been accepted into UA. I just have to meet the principal first. Izuku explained to his mother. Inko did not like that her son was using the quirk of a known murderer, but she guessed it was fine since All Might himself had set it up. Oh, Izu, I'm so proud of you. She nuzzled into him. In honor of your first quirk, we're having katsudon tonight, honey. Izuku just shut down. This is literally the best day of his life, no questions asked. After he finished dinner and went to bed, Izuku lay in bed staring up at the ceiling thinking. All right, Izuku, we just gotta go 4 years without stealing a quirk, get caught using any additional quirks he is given, keep up my training with All Might, study my ass off, impress one of the most terrifying beings on this planet, and overall, just don't fuck something up. Shouldn't be too hard, the greenette thought to himself, and he drifted off happily to sleep. Chapter 3. 2 years have passed since the blessing that is All Might has entered Izuku's life, and the boy's never been happier. The man has easily done more for him than anyone else has. Izuku wouldn't say it to the man's face, but Izuku is starting to see him like a father figure, much more so than his real father. If Izuku could even give that waste of space that title. The quirk giver's constant endurance training had made him such a good runner. Izuku has a real friend now, and he even finally figured out what he wanted to do for his hero career. The life Izuku had before All Might entered were night and day. So when the man gave Izuku a last-minute text to meet with him at Dagoba Beach in the middle of the night, Izuku didn't hesitate. Izuku threw his shoes on and ran out of the house. Izuku's eyes began humming as they shifted to night vision. This way Izuku could travel quickly, but more importantly safe on his way to the beach. After all, the boy didn't want to get caught by some villain or a homeless person along the way, but he did want to get to the beach as quickly as possible. When Izuku finally stumbled upon the dump of a beach that forever changed his life, he easily spotted All Might after turning off night vision and turning on thermal. The boy quickly walked up to All Might announcing his presence so as to not startle the man. Toshinori. The gaunt man turned and gave a simple smile. Young Midoriya, it is good to see you, even though I suppose I saw you for our run this morning. There have been some developments, my boy. All Might's face turned sour. Although it is earlier than expected, you are needed to return those eyes this weekend. The man in question got out of his 20-year sentence 2 years early for being on good behavior. I know it was always going to be this way, but hey, on the bright side, we can start having you obtain more quirks sooner rather than later. In addition, we will no longer need to have you keep taking your mother's quirk. Toshinori looked rather disappointed by the news for some reason. However, Izuku could only see this as positive news. The boy already knew he would lose the eyes, but now he can start getting so much more. Isn't this good news, All Might? It means we can start earlier than intended. Izuku was puzzled to say the least. True it is, but I figured you would take the news worse. I could tell how happy those eyes made you, but if you are not saddened by it, then I have no reason to be either, young Midoriya. All Might said after re-inflating into his hero form. If you are okay with it, then I will schedule the meeting the same way we did the first time on this upcoming Saturday. But it won't be all sad, my boy. After all, we can immediately get you a new quirk. Toshinori said, flashing his trademark All Might smile before deflating. I'll even tell you what. You get to pick this one, my boy. I'll have Tsukachi make a list for you. That reminds me. Did you ever figure out why the quirk was so much weaker for you than it was for the original user? All Might asked. The boy tilted his head. I had a few theories, but I'll need more quirks to test it out to get a final verdict on that. My most likely theory is that my body isn't suited for the quirk, and so it's worse for me than it was for the original owner. After all, they had their entire lives to adapt to the quirk, and I only had it for 2 years. I have a feeling that if I have a quirk for long enough, my body will become just as suited to it as the original owner. This is probably especially true for mutation quirks like Ultra Sight. I'm essentially giving my body another limb, a foreign entity. Most people's bodies would reject that. The fact that mine doesn't is already a blessing in disguise. Plus, I don't think it'll take as long for non-mutation quirks, but like I said, this was all just a guess anyway. Izuku threw his hands up dismissively. By the way, how's your search for a successor going? All Might paled. He had truthfully been putting it off as he really didn't want to stop being the symbol of peace, but he knew he would have to eventually. It's going. I know I need to hurry up and find another successor. After all, I'm down to 5 hours each day. Yagi paused. You would have been perfect, you know that, my boy. Are you sure you truly don't want it? Izuku just shook his head. I've already told you I've been blessed with the world's strongest quirk. I don't need that kind of power. Even if it would have been kind of poetic for all for one and one for all reuniting to become one quirk again. I just think that the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely, holds some merit. If I become that powerful, I would basically be a god, and I don't want that kind of responsibility. I've been thinking about what kind of hero I want to be, and I decided I'm going to be an underground hero. It's much better suited to keeping my quirk secret. Even though the world will know about my quirk one day, I'd like to avoid there being a face to my quirk, you know? Imagine how annoying it would be if the world knew both who I was and what my quirk was. I'd be stalked everywhere. People would beg and or worship me to give them quirks, and I'd honestly rather avoid that. All Might looked disappointed by the answer, but ultimately he agreed. Well, my boy, just know you would have been great, and I still want your blessing for who we give my quirk to. He smiled back at the boy. All right, I've kept you long enough. I will see you tomorrow at noon. I'll be swinging by in my car. Make sure you're ready, my boy. By the next morning, Izuku had received a list of death row or life sentence inmates, all with powerful quirks. Said list was rather short, with there only being 3 people listed on it, and Izuku was only going to get one to become his first official quirk, but that was fine with him. The first was from a mass murderer by the name of Moonfish. He had like 15 life sentences, apparently avoiding the death penalty due to mental insanity. He had slaughtered, cannibalized, and ripped his victims to shreds with his super teeth. This quirk seemed very strong, but ultimately very just wrong. He knew villainous quirks weren't a thing due to All Might, but he also didn't want this quirk that had literally been used to rip people to shreds. So this one is a no-go. The second was a quirk that let him control any fire within a 60-foot radius. It had been used by the criminal nicknamed Combustion. The man had apparently used the quirk to block the exits of buildings after he set them ablaze. Apparently, the man had a burning desire to listen to the screams of the dying and damned, at least according to the psychological profile written on this sheet. Izuku couldn't understand the appeal himself. Listening to people begging to die while they were slowly cooked alive was not something he was into. At the very least, this one was much less off, since the number 2 hero was a fire user himself. The third and final quirk option was probably the best of the bunch. It was called Jetstream. The person who had it could produce blasts of air from their hands that reached over 200 miles per hour. The user had apparently been using it to blast around stealing and murdering. Apparently, the quirk was much weaker until the user had taken the drug Trigger and gone on some crazy joyride, slaughtering and causing general chaos. She was caught during that non-stomp rampage, so she wasn't a serial murderer like the other 2, but she had clearly just hit a point in life where she said fuck it and went out with a bang. What was that song? Better to burn out than fade away. Either way, Izuku was going to take this one, mobility and power. It was a very versatile quirk. All that's left for Izuku is to wait for All Might to arrive. It was around 11:30, so it shouldn't be much longer. Izuku's mom, meanwhile, was nervously pacing back and forth, understandably worried about her son going into a prison. Mom, it'll be okay. I've been there before, and All Might will be with me, Izuku said, doing his best to give a convincing smile. I know, honey, but any mother would be worried for her child walking into a maximum security prison. She looked like she was about to start crying, but before she could, Izuku just hugged her, whispering how everything would be okay and he would have All Might with him. His mother thankfully calmed down before the waterworks started. All right, just please be safe. I will, Mom. I love you, Izuku said that as he walked out the house and into the waiting car of the number 1 hero. We need to stop meeting like this, Toshinori-san, Izuku quipped. PSSH, my boy, I don't know what you mean. He chuckled, smiling back. So have you decided which one you will be taking? You will only be getting one after all. Yes, I have. I'll be taking Jetstream. The teeth one scares me and fire is just too destructive. I'd rather have the versatility and safety of Jetstream, Izuku replied. Toshinori paused while thinking and stroking his chin. Yes, that does make sense, but are you sure you don't want all of them? Is that an option? I mean, I would if I could, but I feel like I'm still on the training wheels and they don't trust me enough, Izuku mused. I'll just do what I'm told for now, and once I've proven myself, I'll be more demanding, beaming with that damn smile he got whenever the boy thought about quirks. If it's any consolation, you've proven yourself to me so many times over, my boy, All Might said thoughtfully. Just keep being yourself and they'll warm up to you. They both decided to spend the rest of the car ride in companionable silence. The second trip to Tartarus was quite like the first, a bunch of questionings and stops where both All Might in his buff form and a small child walked behind him. They found Detective Tsukachi by the gate this time instead of by the interrogation room. It seemed like he was standing there in order to escort them in. Greetings, I hope you're both doing well. Tsukachi smiled at the pair. Are you ready to return the quirk, Izuku? He looked to the boy as he asked. Yes, sir. Even if it's a bit sudden, I don't mind. I already knew I'd lose it at some point. Izuku tried to give his best determined look. The detective noticed that his quirk told him the boy was telling the truth, and he was greatly relieved. Maybe this boy will turn out as good as it seemed like he would. Good, follow me then. It will be the same setup as last time. You are simply going to go and give the quirk and walk out. Does that sound good? Izuku simply nodded, following behind the man, and they soon reached the same interrogation room they used last time. The detective threw the door open and held it that way for the boy to enter. Izuku, for all his credit, simply walked back over to the figure in an orange jumpsuit. He noticed along the way that their build and skin color had changed slightly. It must just be prison life, Izuku thought. Izuku continued walking up to the man and pumped their quirk back into them. The person in question began twitching and freaking out, but the spasms only lasted for a brief few seconds, and the figure readjusted to having their old quirk back. Izuku kind of felt bad about doing that, considering he knew exactly how it felt, especially since he was currently in the process of readjusting to having his old eyes back. It felt like a part of him left. It made him sad, empty, like a lost limb willingly given. Tsukachi just stood with a smirk. He was impressed the boy showed zero hesitation giving up the quirk. Tsukachi knew they all had made the right choice right then and there. He strode into the room. "Congrats, you've passed the test," the detective said. Izuku, for all his credit, just looked confused. Sir, what test?" "Your final test. All Might has been vouching for you all this time, and you've finally proven it. You are worthy of becoming a hero. You were so ready, so able to just toss aside a power that we quite frankly had no legal way to take back or punish you for wanting to keep it. There aren't exactly any laws about the theft of a quirk, and you were given express permission by a pro to use your quirk as well. So we had quite literally no legal standing as to prevent you from just saying, 'I'm keeping the quirk.' But if I'm being honest, I'm glad you didn't." Tsukachi strode over and removed the bag over the prisoner's head, and then he removed the bindings on his arms and plugs in his ears. "May I introduce you to the police commissioner, Kenji Tsurigame?" Izuku was blown away. Had he just gave the police commissioner a quirk? Sure enough, on the face of the dog head before him, Izuku saw the same black, voidless, empty eyes that Izuku had minutes before. "I'm still confused. I know this was a test, but I'd thought it was a test already." The police commissioner spoke. Well, you see, we had to be doubly sure. By forcing this choice on you out of nowhere and making you give up something you were promised to have for longer, it would have made more sense for you to lash out and complain, and never once did you do so. I am impressed at your strength of will. Even though, as you put it, your quirks call to you. You want to have them, but you were so ready, so able to give them up when asked. This was our final test. Congratulations, Izuku Midoriya, you have passed. And here is your reward, everything. Please take your eyes back first, though. They are very uncomfortable for me when combined with my other senses." Izuku went to take the eyes back, feeling the initial pain recede and the familiar humming return, still not quite understanding what exactly he meant by everything. "Sir, what do you mean by everything?" Kenji spoke. "If you refused to return it, it would be the end. If you hesitated to return it, you would still get the quirk you asked for. But by showing you can overpower your desires, you can have all 3 quirks that were listed as options. It's as simple as that. Oh, and I have one other surprise." The dog-headed man reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "It's a provisional license, but a special one. You can only act when directly told to do so. Otherwise, you technically would be breaking the law by using your quirk. I'm letting the first time slide, as it was All Might who instructed you to act, but from now on it will not matter what hero tells you to act. That being said, this is more of a technicality than anything, but it's a step forward. Congratulations, Midoriya, you have proven a level of self-sacrifice, control, and many other qualities a hero would need." "But sir, what happened to the man who I took Ultra Sight from? Doesn't he still need these eyes back?" Izuku was reeling from the news that was being dropped on him. "Humph," the dogman said. "I would think not. He is currently going to spend the rest of his life in jail." The man in question assaulted and murdered another inmate with a shiv he created out of a toothbrush after said inmate called him a quirkless reject. Izuku felt kind of bad about that, since he's the reason the man didn't have a quirk, but he'd been called a quirkless reject so many times, and he'd never killed anyone over it. "That happened about a year ago. We apologize for not informing you, Midoriya, but we wanted the test to move forward as normally as possible, and congratulations, you've passed with flying colors." "Congratulations, you've earned it," All Might said, grinning at his protege. Izuku, in his dumbstruck state, didn't even realize that this was why All Might had looked so uncomfortable the night before. Izuku was being led from interrogation room to interrogation room, taking quirks as he went, but after the second quirk, something started to feel wrong. Figuring it would pass momentarily, he proceeded to take Moonfish's quirk. Instead of the pain passing, it intensified greatly. Izuku's head felt positively on fire. He wasn't sure what was wrong, but it was like a migraine from hell. People around started taking notice, but Izuku didn't care. He just felt so wrong. He just wanted it to stop. The only solace Izuku had was that the pain was so great it was making him pass out. The last thing Izuku saw was the worried look of his skeleton mentor as he blacked out. The first thing Izuku noticed was rhythmic beeping. The second, the color of the ceiling was now bright white, a large contrast compared to dull gray he remembers from before. The third is the massive splitting headache occurring right now. The colors start to form coherent images. Izuku can hear the grayed-out voices of those around him freaking out. He hears static, and he then blurrily passes once more. Izuku awakens in a black void. At first there is nothing, but slowly as life comes into focus, Izuku notices he's not alone. There are 4 strings in here, all twirling and spinning as they intertwined with a black one that looked like a claw. Izuku reached for the one in the middle, and it beckoned to his hand, flowing out. As Izuku's gaze expanded, he noticed there were many more strings frantically moving about above him. The black one looked at them like a predator waiting for its chance to strike. As Izuku watched the hand like string move back and forth like a snake ready to pounce, he was suddenly jolted. Izuku suddenly sprang up from his bed. This time it's much more peaceful. The searing, roaring pain in his skull has receded into a dull, throbbing one, much more manageable than it was before. Painkillers, Izuku figures. Izuku starts to blink his eyes rapidly, an attempt to bring the world around him into focus. The last thing Izuku remembers is taking Moonfish's quirk before everything felt wrong. Maybe this is what drove the man to do what he did. Izuku isn't sure, but finally the world around him makes sense. He can see a green mop of hair very similar to his own, as well as a familiar gaunt man with yellow hair. And Izuku even recognizes a girl with jet black hair and an overly familiar attitude of caring while also not caring. The image focuses and the boy lets them know he's up. "Hi guys," Izuku says weakly. All 3 of them rush over to the bed to make sure he's all right, but they make sure to only talk in hushed whispers. "Hey mom, guess it wasn't all right after all," Izuku joked weakly, and the woman began tearing up. "I told you I didn't like it, honey. I'm just glad you're all right," Inko spoke as she hugged her child. "Midoriya, my boy, can you explain what happened? One second you were fine, the next you were screaming in pain, then fainting the next. I was extremely worried." Yagi asked. "You dumb idiot. First you don't answer my texts for 3 days, then I find out you're in the hospital. Don't scare me like that," Momo said. "Sorry guys, I honestly don't know what happened. My head just started feeling like it's on fire, and the next thing I know I'm here. It still hurts, but it's much less painful than it was. By the way, how long have I been out?" Midoriya asked, wincing as he touched his head. Tashinori answers, "You've been out for 3 days, my boy. You had a fever of 103 degrees, but the strange thing is that it was only your head that had the spike in temperature. The doctors had no idea what was wrong. We're just glad you pulled through." The number 1 hero smiled. "Oh well, I see. I'm sorry I worried you all." Izuku paused before talking to his friend. "Yaoyorozu, can I talk to them for a moment? I promise I'll talk to you after." Izuku smiled weakly at the girl. "Fine." Yaoyorozu did not look happy. "Mom, Tashinori, I think it was all for one. I don't know how many quirks I can hold at once, but after each one we took it started to hurt more and more, and I think Moonfish's quirk was the final straw. It broke me. I'm honestly glad I fainted when I did because the pain just hurt so much, although I'm strangely feeling much less pain now despite having the same number of quirks. Maybe there's a cool down period. Maybe I built a tolerance to it. Maybe it's because I used my quirk so much in one day, I've never used so many times in one day after. Hell, I don't think I've ever used my quirk more than twice in a day now that I think about it." Izuku kept muttering to himself while All Might just sweat dropped at the sight. "Young Midoriya, stop it. I'm glad we learned of this limit when we did. It could have happened in a much worse scenario. We can talk about this later. For now, talk to the poor girl. Miss Yaoyorozu was so worried about you." Tashinori pointed to the girl who was sticking her head into the room from the hospital hallway. When the gazes of the 3 people present looked over to her, she quickly pulled her head back. Inko laughed at the girl for being so obvious. "I love you, Izuku. I'm just glad you're okay." After they left, Yaoyorozu was ushered back into the room. The girl was pouting. You know I'm mad at you. You didn't even tell me you'd be doing something this dangerous. You leave me alone and then get hurt while I know nothing. It feels like you don't trust me, and it hurts. Izuku had not felt this guilty in a while, and he honestly didn't know how to respond. Yaoyorozu, I had no idea what we'd be doing was dangerous. I'm sorry I kept you in the dark though. It won't happen again, I promise. Izuku said, while trying to smile as brightly as he could at his friend without hurting his head even more. Izuku, do you know why I have no other friends and I hate Monoma? The heiress asked him. No, I don't. I have my suspicions though. I just didn't want to pry. Midoriya answered truthfully. Well, let me tell you, every single person I've ever befriended has tried to use me in some way, for my wealth, for my looks, for my grades, for my quirk. Well, that explains the look Yaoyorozu gave him when Izuku asked about her quirk. You're the first person who hasn't done that, and I truly appreciate it, so please don't keep stuff like this from me, alright? My family is super defensive of me now because of it, and I just want to shun everyone away so they don't have a chance to use me in the first place. You're my only real friend. Please don't leave me, alright? Yaoyorozu started crying as she said this, finally letting the pain of her isolation out. Izuku just looked down in defeat and let out a small sigh. I promise I'm not going anywhere, but some of the stuff I know I can't tell you because it's not my secret. That being said, I do trust you, and I'll give you all my secrets. Izuku beamed at her wildly. This next weekend, let's meet up at a place really special to me. I'll tell you everything I can, I promise. Yaoyorozu just nodded back. They shared a small hug, and that was that. Izuku awoke with a start before realizing he's back in his own home. It had been 2 days since his little trip to the hospital. Today was it. It was the day where Izuku would tell Yaoyorozu about his real quirk. Izuku gave a silent prayer to whatever deity would let him still be friends with Yaoyorozu at the end of the day. Then, hoping today went well, tomorrow Izuku would work with all might to train his quirk and find out why exactly it hurt him. Izuku was supposed to meet Yaoyorozu at 11 a.m. Apparently her limo would be dropping her off at his place, and from there, they would both walk to the beach. Izuku would have told the girl to meet him to Goba, but Izuku doubted her parents would like their daughter being dropped off at a garbage dump. It was currently 8 a.m., which meant Izuku had 3 hours to mess around, and what better way than to do that than write in the journal that he stored all the information about his quirks in. Quirks currently in my possession. All for one, emitter-type quirk. Allows for the instant transmission of a quirk upon physical touch with the intended target. Overuse, to many quirks, or to much usage leads to a migraine from hell, and if pushed too far will cause the user to faint. Still need to figure what exactly is the cause of said drawback. Ultrasight, mutation-type quirk. Changes eyes of the person who has it to a pure shade of black, passively improves the sight of its user, giving them 20/20th vision. Night vision functions in a different way to normal night vision. It just makes it look like a regular day versus making everything green like regular night vision. He can hold this one for 20 minutes before it starts to hurt a bit. The previous user supposedly could keep this up for hours at a time. Thermal vision functions as regular thermal vision, turning his vision blue except for heat sources, which get redder the hotter they are. Blacklight vision functions in the exact same way blacklight does as well. Radiation vision is his least used vision and will probably remain so due to the fact that Izuku wanted to be nowhere near any source of radiation. Zoom is incredibly useful, being able to see about 1 kilometer out. Apparently the last user could see up to 5 kilometers out. I tried combining it with thermal once. I regretted that almost instantly, however, as it felt like my eyes were burning from the strain, but quirks are like muscles, and I'll need to train so I can do that. X-ray vision. Dark vision, I need to find a better name for this one. It darkens the world around and causes living things to become a yellow silhouette. He has about 15 feet of range with this at the moment. I really need a new name for this quirk. Oh, I know, I'll call it dark vision. Jetstream, emitter-type quirk. Allows the user to fire bursts of typhoon-level air from the palms. With proper practice, the quirk can be used to fly. This is by far Izuku's favorite quirk. The winds can reach up to 200 miles per hour with only 120 miles per hour being needed to lift the average weight person off the ground. And since Izuku is a child, he needs much less for takeoff. It's unfortunate that Izuku can only make winds of around 80 miles per hour. He wanted to fly so badly. Overuse leads to the person feeling like they have been running for a very long time. He's really glad All Might helped him train his endurance, because Izuku can hold the quirk on for a good 10 minutes at this point. The stronger the gust, the faster you exhaust it. I can only hold 80 miles per hour gusts for around a minute at the moment. Super Teeth, Mutation, Emitter, Type Quirk. Honestly, Izuku wants nothing to do with this quirk. He's only used it once, and he really doesn't like how it feels. It feels itchy and scratchy. Using it is like rubbing your teeth on tinfoil. He also doesn't know to classify it because it both mutates his body and fires his teeth out. On the bright side, he will never need dentures he uses. Combustion, Emitter-type quirk, allows the user to manipulate any fire within a 30-foot radius. It has almost no drawback and allows for free movement of the fire almost perfectly. The downside is there already has to be a fire, so at the moment it's pretty useless to him, but hopefully down the line, he get a fire quirk, because combined with this one will give Izuku a ton of options. Izuku looked up to the clock and saw that it was nearing 11 a.m. He had been writing and rewriting his notes for quite a while, now he realized. Better start getting ready to go. Izuku got dressed quickly and moved out into the living room, only to see his mom making lunch. "Hey Mom," Izuku said, beaming at her. "Oh, good afternoon, dear. Ready to hang out with little Yaoyorozu?" Inko stopped slicing carrots as she said this. "Yeah, I think I am, but I'm terrified about how she'll react to seeing my quirk though. I hope she doesn't get scared of me like everyone else did." Izuku brooded. "That was the past, Izuku. Come on, this girl is better than the rest. She won't judge you. With how she was when you were in the hospital, I really doubt it, honey. It'll be fine, I promise." Inko giving her son a hug that he definitely needed. Just after that, they heard a knock on the door. "I wonder who that could be," Inko said in a playful manner. Izuku just sighed and went over to the door to open it, finding a wild Yaoyorozu on the other side. She was wearing a sundress with flowers on it. "Hey, Midoriya." Momo beamed. "So where are we going?" "I'm not gonna ruin the surprise, Yaoyorozu. All right, we're leaving, Mom. I'll see you later." Izuku smiled back at the elder Midoriya. They made small talk as they walked to the beach, mainly about the stuff Izuku had missed while he had been in the hospital. Turns out Monoma is still a jerk. The blonde apparently went on some kind of tirade about being part of the superior class of people when the teacher started a lesson on the working class. God, that guy is such a cocky fuck, Izuku thought. Well, at least he doesn't beat people up by literally exploding them. "Anything good happen while I was in the hospital, Yaoyorozu?" Izuku said, trying to lighten the mood. "I got another 100 on our English test." Momo asked questioningly. "Well, I'd say good job, but I'm not really surprised you did." Izuku laughed. "What about outside of school? How are the young Mrs. Parents?" Izuku brought out the snob voice the girl liked so much, which made her giggle a bit. "They're doing all right, just busy as usual. Being the heiress of one of most successful support companies gets lonely sometimes." Yaoyorozu looked down a bit sad. Izuku has no idea what possessed him in that moment, but the look on her face was criminal. He quickly strode in front of the girl before grabbing her hands and forcing her to look at him. "Momo, I know it isn't easy, and I know about the more unsavory things that are said about you. But I promise you none of them are true. They're all just jealous of you." The sudden close contact was causing the girl to go beet red, and she could only let out small panicked noises as a response. Wait, did he just say her name? Yaoyorozu's head was officially fried. She just stood there broken as her brain was trying to comprehend everything that just happened. Izuku, realizing what he'd just done, quickly let go of her hands before stepping back. "Sorry, Yaoyorozu. Too just wanted to help. I didn't mean to use your first name." Izuku turned his head to the side, trying to stammer out an apology. Momo started stammering out her own apology. "Too, it's fine, I just wasn't expecting it." When Yaoyorozu finally looked up, she noticed Midoriya had the exact same expression on his face and just started to laugh. "You always know what to say, you dork. Thanks." Yaoyorozu, now that she had taken some time to breath and calm herself, realized she didn't mind the use of her first name. In fact, it could have made her happy. "You Midoriya?" "Yais, Yaoyorozu," Izuku mumbled. "Could you say it again?" The girl was blushing profusely. Now it was time for Izuku's brain to fry. He knew exactly what the girl meant. He wasn't that dense, but to be asked that by a girl of all things felt completely out of left field for the boy. Realizing she was still looking at him expectantly, Izuku put his head into overdrive. Hey brain, we need to say something back. Izuku just settled on doing what the girl asked and spoke quietly. Momo. The squeal released from the girl in front of him was definitely not what Izuku had been expecting. Maybe he should respond with the same thing. Then would you call me Izuku? Momo just nodded weakly. Izuku. It felt right on her tongue. There was an awkward silence for a bit after that. Neither of them knew how to go back to normalcy, so Izuku did the next best thing and completely changed topics. So try out any of my ideas about your quirk? Thankful for the quick transition. Oh, actually, yes. After your suggestion that I should focus on learning how to make different types of ranged weapons, I finally succeeded on making a tranquilizer gun. I also then may have accidentally tranked myself. Yaoyorozu said that last part much quieter than the first. Oh my god, Momo, that's so cool. Your quirk is amazing, you know? So I got really bored one day while thinking about how you could potentially apply your quirk in interesting ways, so I did the math on something weird. Momo, you do realize that if you wanted to, you could destabilize the world economy, right? Like in a month, you could double all the existing gold on the planet. And I just think that's the coolest fucking thing. Izuku stopped stuttering when you say her name. You have one job. Momo was blushing slightly at the overwhelming praise she was getting. This was in addition to how cute she found it that Izuku couldn't say her name without pausing. It was then that the dump came into view. Momo was obviously confused at why exactly this is Izuku's most important place in the world. Izuku, not my place to judge, but why is this dump the most important place to you? Oh, come on, girl, we're doing it too. Izuku took a deep breath, and finally, after a few seconds of silence, he summoned the courage to tell her about his quirk, although he'd steeled himself in more than one way. Momo, this place is the most important to me because this is where my journey to become a hero truly began, where my mentor told me that even with my villainous quirk, I could change the world. I don't want to scare you, but what I'm about to tell you is kind of a government secret. The quirk stealer paused, letting the shock enter her eyes, and decided this was it. He was really doing it. Izuku took off his contact lenses and showed her his real eyes. Yaoyorozu was visibly startled when she saw them, but recovered quickly. Noticing Izuku had stopped stuttering, she did her best to do the same. Izuku, that's not that big of a deal. Your eyes are just a little different. That's not it, Momo. My quirk, my real quirk, is the ability to take and give quirks. Izuku waited for that bombshell of information to register in the girl's eyes. He was expecting to see fear in them, but what appeared was instead admiration. Izuku, are you serious? That's like literally the coolest quirk ever. How many do you have? Well, this was not how Izuku was expecting this to go, if he were being honest. You're not scared? I could literally just walk over, touch you, and you would be quirkless permanently. So why aren't you scared of me? Izuku was silently cheering inside. She didn't reject him, thank God. Izuku, I know you'd never do that. If you had wanted to, you could have stolen it literally the first day we met, but you never did. That being said, I can see why you think I should be. Were people scared of you at your old school? I always thought it was weird that you transferred to one of the most expensive schools in Japan despite not coming from a wealthy background yourself, and on top of that, it was in the middle of the semester. A lot of things regarding Izuku were starting to make sense in her head now. This mentor must have really helped him. Yeah, they were absolutely horrified of me, or they downright hated me. I had no one or nothing. I guess that's why I wanted to talk to you at first. Being lonely isn't fun. But my mentor saved me, and I wanted to save you. He smiled at her. If she was willing to stick with him even after learning what his quirk was, then he would stick with her. PSSH, you're a total dork, you know that. But, thanks, Izuku. Alright, you gotta show me all your quirks, Izuku. No hiding them from me, you hear. She sounded like she was pouting at the end there, which would make sense considering how long he had kept her in the dark. Alright, I guess I'll lead with my eyes. He was very thorough and showed her each and every one of his quirks. Izuku even had her make a lighter so he could show off combustion. She was just as horrified of the teeth quirk as Izuku was, which he found funny, to be honest. My favorite is Jetstream, watch this. He pointed of his hands down and hit his full power, causing him to jump into the air. He couldn't fly yet, but he could glide. He decelerated himself enough to land softly on the ground from where he had leapt from. Izuku, that reminds me. How did you get those quirks? Who did you steal them from? Momo looked a little frightened as she said that. She just realized that Izuku had to have stolen these from someone. Oh, don't worry, please. IT was completely legal, I swear. The frightened boy stammered out as loudly and quickly as he could to reassure the girl. She jumped first, then her look of fear fading with a sigh of relief. I can't tell you all the details, but I took these from bad people, people who abused their quirks to hurt others. He couldn't tell her about All Might after all, that wasn't his secret. But how is that legal still? Momo was confused to say the least. Oh, the police use me to take them from bad people. As long as I don't take anyone else's quirk, the police allow me to take them from prisoners. My quirk has a kind of hunger to it. It has to get a quirk every once in a while, or I will get this irresistible urge to take one. By taking quirks from criminals, I help them out, and they help me out. Izuku explained that as best as he could. Huh? And how did that arrangement get set up? The idea made sense to Momo, but how did it happen in the first place? Well, I stole someone's quirk the day I got mine, and the police got involved. I met my mentor that day, and he saved me. Izuku said with the biggest smile she had seen on the boy. This mentor must be really important to Izuku, she thought. All right, well, I'm glad you told me. I guess it was something really big. The creation girl started laughing, realizing just how big of a secret Izuku had. She thought it was going to be something dumb, and he was just making a big deal out of it. Well, that's everything, Momo. Anything else you wanted to know? Izuku was glad it turned out this way. Well, nothing to ask, just more of a statement. I know I've never said it, and you never talked about your quirk, so I didn't think you wanted to be a hero, but clearly I was wrong about that. So let me tell you, let's be the best heroes ever. Momo gave a thumbs up to Izuku at the exclamation. Izuku just chuckled. He mimicked the action. To the best heroes. Once they had gotten food, Momo had to go back, but overall this was a pretty good day, Izuku thought to himself. Mom was right, she was still with him. Izuku met with All Might the next day to practice his quirks and to learn more about All for One. Midoriya, my boy, how did everything with young Yaoyorozu go? All Might said, flashing his trademark smile at the child. It went amazing, All Might. She wasn't even scared of, well, she was for a bit when she realized my quirks had to have come from somewhere. She thought I'd stolen them from people illegally at first, but once I explained everything it was fine, and don't worry, I didn't say anything about you. Izuku explained to the gaunt skeleton of a man with a heart made of gold. That's very good, my boy, very good indeed. Having someone your age in your corner, while even knowing what your quirk is, a huge step forward. Now on to today. We are going to have you repeatedly use All for One on me, taking and giving quirks over and over to see if that was the cause of your predicament the other day. Please tell me if starts hurting, and we shall stop immediately. Toshinori explained. Izuku nodded. The plan made sense to him. Any particular quirk you want, All Might? Give me the propulsion quirk. It is your favorite after all, and I'd like to try it out for myself. The boy walked over and gave it to him. But as he did so, he felt something he hadn't felt before. Just as he was giving the man the quirk, he knew it was wrong. Izuku shouldn't be giving him this quirk. Warning bells went off right as the transfer started. He immediately canceled the quirk and pulled it back, but the damage had been done. Izuku watched All Might scream in pain, then collapse. All Might, he screamed, running over to the man and his lifeless body. Thankfully, by the time he had reached the man, he was already coming to. Oh my God, I'm glad you're all right. Izuku let out through uncontrolled sobs. He had hurt his mentor. He had hurt All Might. All Might just started to stand wearily. My boy, what just happened? I was fine, then as your quirk went into my body, it started to overwhelm me. My head hurts so badly. This must be what it's like when your quirk hurts you. But regardless, I am all right. You pulled that quirk back in the nick of time. Izuku was just sobbing against the man. All Might went to hug him and whisper reassurances that it's all right and most definitely not his fault. It was All Might's idea after all. Several minutes later, Izuku had calmed down enough to explain what happened. I was just about to give you the quirk when I think All for One tried to warn me. It was desperately telling me not to give you that quirk. Thanks to that, I was able to pull it back before I fully gave it to you. You said the headache was like the one I got, right? That must be it then. It's having too many quirks that causes the migraines. Your body already has 7 quirks. 8 must be too much for you. The boy trying his best to calmly rationalize the situation. That would appear to be the case, young Midoriya. But you said the headaches stopped for you, correct? Maybe your quirk can be trained to carry more quirks. much like improving any other quirk. But in your case, you strengthen your quirk by holding enough quirks to be near your current limit. At least that's what I think. Your old limit was 5 quirks, but I have a feeling you can hold more now. All Might explained in a way that makes sense. Izuku paused in thought for a bit before responding. If he can't hold that many quirks, his use for the police would go down exponentially. But then an idea struck him. A way to both help the police, train his quirk, and help the populace. All Might, I have a favor to ask, and an idea I think would be very beneficial for both me, the public, and the police. All Might, do you know if there are organizations out there that help the quirkless? Izuku asked. All Might, having no idea where his trainee was taking this. I do believe so, my boy. Why though? Well, I can't help the police if I can only hold like 7 quirks before I melt down. However, I don't need to be the one with the quirks. All Might paused for a second, then it came to him. My boy, you are so smart, Tashinori exclaimed. Yup, I can take quirks near to my limit, then donate the rest to quirkless people that we deem are capable of having them. Rinse and repeat, we train my quirk, and we help people who have suffered like I have. It's especially useful since there aren't many quirkless my age. The 20% of the population that do are mainly elders born to previous generations after all. Izuku explained his plan, and much to the surprise of Izuku, All Might was stroking his chin thoughtfully. Izuku had thought his idea might get shut down, but the man was seriously considering it. After a bit, All Might spoke. All right, my boy, I'll look into my contacts so we can set this up. It's honestly an ingenious solution to our problem. I'm so proud of you, young Midoriya. We should get you some more quirks first, though. Are there any you don't want currently? No hesitation at all, Izuku immediately stammered out, Moonfish's quirk, please. It's too freaky for me. Izuku blanched in disgust of the thought of his teeth being used to carve someone up. Ignorance is bliss at least, and whoever he gives it to won't know what it's done. All Might just laughed. I couldn't agree with you any more, young Midoriya. We're going to the prison this weekend, so we can try to up your limit. I think you'll quite like the next one we got for you. Remember the ex-hero Death Arms? Izuku was disgusted when he heard that name. He had looked up to the man after all. Apparently Death Arms had been getting paid off by a mob in the area he patrolled in. In exchange for not bothering their group, they paid him quite well. When he was finally caught with his hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, the police had come for him, and he murdered 3 cops by throwing a police car at them. He was eventually subdued by his old comrade Kimui Woods, his hero license obviously revoked, and he was sent to Tartarus. Yeah, I remember the guy, Izuku said with disgust on his lips. I'll be glad to take his quirk though. Izuku switching from hatred to joy so quickly All Might could swear it was never there. This boy and his quirks, he thought with a soft chuckle. Yes, it is a most excellent quirk, minor super strength. It has nothing on OFA though. All Might said that like he was pouting. Izuku assumed because he refused to take OFA, but was so willing to take what was essentially a worse OFA. Izuku just shrugged. Yeah, I know. And with that, another 2 years passed quickly. Izuku taking and giving so many quirks he had honestly lost count a year ago. It was funny, he thought. The media had been calling what Izuku did the second awakening of quirks, a new phenomenon where quirkless people suddenly manifested a quirk out of nowhere, the oldest being 13 years old. Izuku was proud of himself. He never thought that life would go his way for once, but he was helping society. His quirk was the best thing that had ever happened to him. He could prevent people from being dekus like himself. He had even upped his limit to 15 quirks before he passed out. He continued his workout sessions, and All Might said his real training would begin soon, and as well as finally finding a successor, Izuku was very proud of the man's choice. Though to be fair, he was the one recommended them to All Might. Text chat. Cinnamon Bun. Hey Momo, what if I told you I had a proposition for you? 3D printer. Huh. What kind of proposition? Cinnamon Bun. Well, remember that mentor I told you about? He wants to meet you. 3D printer. Whatever for Izu. Cinnamon Bun. Well, I asked if he could train you as well, and he agreed. You still want to be a hero, right? 3D printer. Of course, we've been talking about that for years now, when we finally join UA together. Cinnamon Bun. Perfect. Then meet me at Dagoba Beach at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I'll CYA there, smiley face. 3D printer. Wait, Izuku, why? Cinnamon Bun has gone offline. Izuku was staring out at the sea. The sun beginning to rise over the horizon. It truly was one of the most beautiful things he's had the privilege of seeing. Now it's time to give that to everyone else. He turned, seeing Momo and All Might behind him in his skeletal form as they walked towards him. The last 4 years were his tutorial. The game started now, he mused to himself. Good morning, Toshinori-san, and you too, Momo. He smiled brightly at the both of them. So Izuku, why are we out here at 6 a.m. and who is this man next to me? Momo knew this speech was important to Izuku, and she remembered this man from the hospital, so she was pretty certain this man was the mentor that Izuku had been talking about, but she couldn't be 100% sure yet. Oh, I'll just let him explain himself, Izuku said with a wolfish grin on his face. Alright, so something weird was going on, she thought to herself. Miss Yaoyorozu, my name is Yagi Toshinori, but you may better know me as the world's current symbol of peace and justice, All Might, young miss. The man said as he bulked back up into his hero form. Yup, this was it. She had finally gone insane. Her best friend could steal people's quirks. He was being taught by All Might. And for some reason, All Might looked like someone had sucked out his insides with a vacuum cleaner. She slapped herself hard. It didn't wake her up. Alright, so this isn't a dream. Maybe I'm a schizophrenic. Did the butler slip something into my tea this morning? She couldn't rule out drugs after all. She muttered to herself. All Might looked down at the poor girl. A thought occurred to him. Oh no, it's spreading. Izuku, meanwhile, was just laughing hysterically. Is that what it looks like when I do that? Momo, it's fine, you're not crazy, and this is all real. Izuku managed to get out between his fits of laughing. But then why does the #1 hero look like that? Still not having fully recovered. Well, young miss, if you have to ask, this is why. He deflated mid-sentence, showing her the massive injury to his stomach. I was injured in a fight with a seriously powerful villain. I lost 3/4 of my stomach and a part of my lungs. I've been getting weaker and weaker, which is why I need a successor to become the next symbol. Momo was visibly shook for a second, but then realized it made sense. Izuku would be the perfect successor to All Might. He's already plenty strong, and he will only get stronger. Who better to replace the symbol? It was perfect in her mind. But then life, as per usual, went in a completely different direction. Which is why I want you to become my successor, Miss Yaoyorozu. All Might said with such conviction, such pride, she couldn't believe the man believed she could do it. She was only Momo after all. Wait, what? I thought Izuku was your successor. She belted out the sentence as fast as she could. You were not wrong to assume that. However, young Midoriya turned it down, and in his place he nominated you. You who were only ever belittled and abused. You who never lost your convictions despite the hardships you have faced in life. Someone whose ideals to be a hero were never shut down despite seeing some of the worst humanity had to offer. The blonde-haired man clenched his fist when he finished. Momo was blushing like crazy. Izuku had said all of that about her. She didn't know whether to be impressed, embarrassed, or both. She turned to Izuku. Why did you turn him down? Isn't this like your dream? Wait a minute, how would I even be made into a successor? Realizing she had missed the most important step, but then she realized Izuku was here. He could give her All Might's quirk. That's probably why he was chosen in the first place. All Might, watching the gears turn in the poor girl's head, had finally had enough. Time to just say everything and stop letting her confuse herself more. Miss Yaoyorozu, I would ask you wait until I'm done to start asking questions, or we are going to be here forever. He laughed. This girl reminded him so much of Izuku the first time they had this conversation. Then he spoke, telling her everything about One for All, but leaving All for One out of it. He was gone and dealt with, and we have a new, better All for One to take his place. Better to let the past die with the past, he believed. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of information dropped on me here. So first off, there is actually more than one quirk that can be given. I honestly thought that was unique to Izuku. Secondly, you want to give me your quirk so that I can become the next symbol along with Izuku. Did I get that all right? The girl was in various states of shock, her mind trying to process everything that was just said. Hell, Izuku having the quirk he did was still a shock to her. This just took the cake, though. Yes, that is the state of things, Miss Yaoyorozu. So do you accept? The skeleton said with conviction in his eyes. She had never seen All Might look like this. He wasn't smiling. Then again, the All Might she knew didn't cough up blood every other sentence. But she had already decided that she would be the best hero alongside Izuku long ago. Time to put preaching into practice, she supposed. Yes, yes, I accept. The man smiled. Good, that brings us to why we are here today, for both of you. This beach used to be one of the greatest vacation spots Musatafa had to offer, but now look at it. Much like society, it's broken, ugly, marred, corrupted. The entrance exams for UA are in 10 months, and while I think you have the character of a hero, you certainly do not have the body of one just yet, young Yaoyorozu. My quirk is dangerous, even to its user. It's so powerful that if someone with noodly arms like yourself used it, it would likely detonate your limbs or even your entire body. We need to toughen you up before you can even accept my quirk. That is why we are here. We will build up your muscle while you clean this beach. Remember these words. After all, just because something isn't flashy doesn't mean it isn't heroic. It's almost always the little things that we do that will have the biggest impact. Wow, All Might was good at speeches. Izuku already knew that, of course, but when the man wanted to, he could clearly belt it out. Or maybe he wrote that before coming here. Either way, it was good. Izuku spoke up next. Am I going to take part in this? She needs the muscle after all, and I don't. Plus, if I help, she will have less to clean. It could harm her workout. Izuku didn't want to be left out, but it made sense. Worry not, young Midoriya. I already have a training schedule ready for both you and Miss Yaoyorozu. And yes, you will be taking part, but you will have a smaller section to work on. Your current super strength quirk would make you able to clear too much too quickly. Momo remembered when Izuku first got that quirk. He had basically been to the moon and back with how happy he was. She didn't admit it or say it out loud, but she was kind of jealous of Izuku's quirk, even though hers basically was playing God, the power of creation. It was kind of biblical when you take the time to think about it, or more like when Izuku had the time to think about it. All Might broke her out of her ruminating. This training schedule will be downright brutal, especially to you, Miss Yaoyorozu. Are you sure you want to partake? This was her final out, she realized. Once she started, this would be her future. Either the number 1 or the number 2 hero. She didn't hesitate last time, and she won't hesitate this time. I'm not backing out just because things might get a bit rough. She smiled at the man, showing him her fierce determination. I like that kind of spirit, you go-getter, you. Buffing himself back up. Like I always say, plus ultraa. The training began that morning. It was absolutely brutal. Momo vomited from the sheer amount of working out she had to do. She was kind of mad when she looked over at Izuku and saw that he wasn't even winded yet. Stupid quirks, stupid broken super strength, stupid super cooling. Izuku saw Momo looking at him angrily. He just gave her the best smile he could, which only further provoked the poor girl. Well, that was good for our first morning, but overtraining is dangerous. It's best to know when to quit. That reminds me, Nedzu wanted to see you today, Izuku. The man said from atop his self-balancing scooter. Izuku visibly brightened up. Really? It's finally time for the meeting? Momo was confused, but at this point, between vomiting and every else that had happened today, she just stopped questioning it. All right, if we are done for the day, then I shall call my driver to come get me. Thank you for everything, All Might Sensei. And same time tomorrow, Izuku. The boy blushed slightly but nodded in response. He really liked that girl, but not in that way, or maybe he did. He honestly didn't know at this point. By the way, All Might, this training kind of feels like it's doing nothing for me. I know this sounds wrong, but I feel like I should work on endurance exclusively, or I don't know. I'll be quirkless when I do these workouts. Molecular manipulation makes it so I never overheat, and with my super strength, I'm not actually working out. Even if I can only lift a ton at maximum. While you have and can lift entire buildings, it makes lifting this debris pretty easy. Izuku, half thinking out loud, half trying to explain himself to his mentor. I know, my boy, I figured it would. Your body has reached a point where training normally just won't cut it. I had you here more for moral support for her than anything else. I'll try and think of some ways we can improve you outside of just improving your quirks and your use of them, but then maybe that's all we should be focusing on. After all, for you, getting stronger isn't like other people. You don't have to work to improve your body. You can just take something that will do it for you, which is both the lazy and probably the correct option. All Might shrugged, unable to figure out how to train someone that can't be trained. Either way, let us depart, my boy. Nedzu is waiting, and he is terrifying when he gets angry. With that, they walked off to All Might's beaten-up station wagon and drove off. A good 30 minutes later, they had arrived at UA. the massive gate hanging in the distance, and some weird homeless man standing by it. Not exactly what he thought his first time entering UA would be like, if he's being honest. All Might. Who is that? Izuku moving slightly behind, All Might just in case. That, my boy, is who will be your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shoyuta, better known as Eraserhead. Wait, that's Eraserhead. He's the hero who made me decide to become an underground hero. I wanted to erase quirks just like he did. Eraserhead, for all his composure, slumped at the outburst. He had a fan. The whole point of being underground was so he didn't have fans. This stupid problem child is really going to be an issue, isn't he? Aizawa had never heard of a student being able to skip all practical exams before. Hell, the man didn't even know what his quirk was yet, but it'd have to be pretty amazing if that rat was willing to break all the rules just to let the kid in. He even ordered Aizawa that if the kid ended up in his class, he had to consult with Nedzu before expelling him. Aizawa had never been given that stipulation before. Hell, he got away with literally expelling his entire class this year. It honestly kind of worried him that the rat was willing to overstep his teaching style in order to protect this kid, if he was being honest. Not to mention the kid doesn't even have to take the recommendation exam. He's so recommended, he just got in assuming he passed his written exam, of course, breaking himself from the haze of his mind. All right, problem child, we're going inside. The rat wants to see you, and oh, here you go, it's a guest pass. Izuku was still beaming brightly at the man. And if this was what having fans felt like, then he made the absolute correct call by going underground. They walked in silence until they reached the massive door leading into the office of UA's principal. Fair warning, kid, the principal can be really scary. I don't know how you got on his radar so early, but it'll probably end up biting you in the ass. Let's just get this over with so I can go back to sleep. Aizawa mumbled that last part to himself. Upon walking into the room, Izuku was greeted with the sight of a small white animal with a scar over one of his eyes. The creature in question was rapidly scanning the boy. He felt like he was being seen through, if he was being honest. Ah yes, Izuku Midoriya, I've heard quite a bit about you. Smart, talented, resourceful. After all, one of our future teachers has spoken so highly of you. And from what I can see, and from the things I have heard about you, he wasn't wrong about that in the slightest. Thank you, Principal Nedzu. I feel blessed enough as it is. To have earned your praise as well is beyond amazing. Izuku bowed to the animal. PSSH, stop that. To you I am Nedzu, and never feel the need to bow to me. I'm sure you've heard of my past. The last thing I want is someone to be subservient to me. I would rather see you as an equal than anything less. The creature spoke giddily. Knowing exactly what the man, airbear, rat, fuck it, he wants to be treated equally, I will call him a man, was talking about. After all, Nedzu's past was horrific. He didn't deserve being treated like a literal lab rat. So you are probably wondering why I wanted to speak to you. I had a few questions that needed answering before you were accepted here. He then turned to Aizawa, and seeing if Eraserhead's quirk worked on you was one of them. Go ahead and activate a safe one. He gestured to the boy, who simply nodded and activated Jetstream at a low speed. Aizawa tried turning it off. Aizawa, not understanding where this was going, activated his quirk, and sure enough, the wind had stopped. I turned it off. Now Izuku tried to activate another one. Nedzu stared at the situation like it was a puzzle to be solved. Izuku nodded again and activated his fire breathing. He let out a small amount of heat and then grabbed control of it with combustion. Seems like my other quirks still work, Nedzu. Aizawa was freaking out. No one had ever been able to use their quirk when he turned it off before, and what did they mean, quirks? What the hell was going on? All right, you all are going to tell me what is going on right now. Aizawa was usually really good at keeping his composure, but this was too much. Simple. The rat smiled at him. Izuku's quirk is the ability to give and take quirks. As it stands, he has removed the quirks, while over 1,000 criminals who were all bad enough to warrant stays at Tartarus. He then gave those quirks to the quirkless. I'm sure you've heard of the second quirk awakening, Aizawa. Well, here is the answer. This single boy has already helped the lives of countless people before the age of 15. I'm sure you can see why I'm so interested in him now, no? Aizawa was dumbstruck. He had to teach this kid? This isn't a problem child. This is a fucking nuclear bomb attached to a 14-year-old. How the hell am I supposed to teach this? Nedzu, if I am teaching this child, I'm asking for a raise, a large one. He said it while staring down at the boy. Fine, Aizawa. I take it you accept then? The reason this boy should be a hero has already been made evidently clear, at least I think it has anyway. The rat said while chuckling. Aizawa just rubbed his hand against his face. All right, fine, I accept, but knowing you, Nedzu, I'm sure there is something you aren't telling me. How much of a workload am I taking on right here? Please be honest with me. The rat just cackled maniacally. You catch on fast, Aizawa. There are conditions, but none of them should trouble you. They only trouble the boy. After all, they are almost all on him. And as long as he acts as he is told, there will be no trouble at all. And to make you feel better, there have been 0 accidents for the past 4 years Izuku has operated. The only real worry is if another party messes up and I am forced to take action. Now, as to the actual conditions themselves, I'll let Izuku explain them to you. The rat had a gleam in his eye, and Aizawa really didn't like it. Izuku rubbed his fingers together before beginning. The first condition is that we need to tell everyone in the class my quirk, and stress that if they do not keep it secret, then the full weight of UAS legal team will be brought to bear against whoever broke that condition. All of Class 1A and the staff will be told. 1B will be told eventually as well. So that's why the damned rat was smiling, Aizawa thought. The second is that I cannot use my quirk outside of hero training or whenever a teacher gives me permission. The third is that any quirk I take must be returned at the end of the training or whenever I'm told to. Other than that, I'm like any other student. I promise I won't cause you any trouble, Aizawa-sensei. The boy bowing before him. Aizawa didn't like this, but he can't look at the image of this boy bowing before him, promising to be the best little student he ever had and not feel something. How he was going to regret this, wasn't he? He would in fact come to regret this. All right, fine, kid. I'll take you. Just keep that promise to me and avoid trouble, and we'll be good. The boy immediately straightened up, staring into the man's eyes with the brightest expression he had ever seen. He had almost forgot the kid was a fan. Can I ask for an autograph, please? Say is a ways and say it's just have always been the inspiration for the kindoff hero I wanted to be, and it's just so cool to meet you. For the first time since the meeting started, All Might spoke. Well, I say spoke, but he just starting laughing. Izuku, my boy, please calm yourself. I know you and your love for heroes, but do try to breath. Izuku took a big gulp of air after the muttering spree he just dropped, staring straight into Aizawa's eyes. He already regretted this, but to his credit, he took the notebook the boy had and noticed what it was. It was a page all about him, several actually. As he kept looking through the book, he realized how scarily accurate the boy was on his and several other heroes' weaknesses. Eraserhead's quirk only works on things he can see, so cloaks and the like completely negate his quirk. He fights almost completely quirkless other than his capturing tape, so really all it would take is to abuse the fact that 2 people are fighting quirkless. Bring a gun, and it would be relatively easy to defeat Eraserhead. The other option is to go for his vision. If he gets the drop on you, force him to blink. If you can get your quirk back for even a second, that could swing the battle in your favor. He honestly wanted to confiscate the thing when he imagined it falling into the wrong hands. He relented, though realizing this was the first time he had ever given an autograph. Although he figured the rat would get a kick out of the book, so he threw at him after signing it. Aizawa wasn't kind, but he wasn't cruel either, and if the boy wanted his autograph, he would have to earn it. That book has some scary information in it, Nedzu. It should be kept out of the public if I'm being honest. Nedzu curiously took the book and then started looking through it. This was the most detailed analysis of so many different heroes and their weaknesses and abilities he had ever seen. He had a quirk that gave him an intellect far above the average human, and even he was impressed. He found his own page and was startled at the amount of information. Allows the user to maintain and multitask up to 5 actions at once. Intellect is so high it almost causes the user to have near precognition when given the time to analyze the situation. Weakness, surprise, or unexpected moves. If you can catch the user off guard, then their intellect is completely useless. If you wanted to defeat someone with this quirk, unexpected sneak attacks were the best option. This boy, he thought. Oh, he liked this boy. The rat starting smiling, and it was terrifying. Izuku, how would you like private tutoring sessions from me to help develop your analytical skills? Izuku answered with a start. You really think I'm worth that? I would love to. Aizawa immediately regretted handing that book to Nedzu. What had he done? He just made a second Nedzu. This was a curse that would haunt him for the rest of his days. Well, I did say I had several questions, but honestly, I don't need to ask them anymore. Just with how you've been interacting with us, I can tell you will make a fine addition to this school. However, I do want to ask a question or two regarding you and your quirk. How soon are you willing to let the world know about your quirk? You will be completely safe here on campus with our dorming system. However, I have heard of your reluctance to let people know. Izuku paused for a bit before answering, I told All Might about this, but I don't want people to go around treating me like a god. Can you imagine the sheer number of people who would want to see me if they knew what I could do? Netsu paused. Yes, that made sense. All right, then, for the public activities we do here at UA, such as the sport festival, what would you like your official quirk to be? Jetstream. It's my favorite, and I'm so close to learning how to fly with it. Izuku did not hesitate to give that as his answer, and he was truly close to flight. He could hover and glide for so long now it basically was flight, but he would get there. All right, then I will have your quirk documentation changed to be Jetstream. Netsu smiled at his new charge. So sorry, but one last thing. For the safety of your fellow students and staff, we need to know what quirks you have at the moment. Oh, that's no trouble at all. I kind of hit a roadblock at 15 quirks. My limit hasn't gone up for a while. I'm sitting at 10 currently, so I can take quirks whenever I need to and not go over my limit. I can safely go to about 13 quirks before I'll start really feeling the effects of overuse. The quirks I currently have are all in this notebook, which Izuku pulled from his backpack and handed it to Netsu. Quirks currently in my possession. All for one, emitter-type quirk. Allows for the instant transmission of a quirk upon physical touch with the intended target. Overuse, too many quirks, or too much usage leads to a migraine from hell, and if pushed too far will cause the user to faint. Still need to figure what exactly is the cause of said drawback. Ultrasight, mutation-type quirk. Changes eyes of the person who has it to a pure shade of black, passively improves the sight of its user, giving them 20/20th vision. Night vision functions in a different way to normal night vision. It just makes it look like a regular day versus making everything green like regular night vision. He can hold this one for 20 minutes, 1 hour before it starts to hurt a bit. The previous user supposedly could keep this up for hours at a time. Thermal vision functions as regular thermal vision, turning his vision blue except for heat sources, which get redder the hotter they are. Blacklight vision functions in the exact same way blacklight does as well. Radiation vision is his least used vision and will probably remain so due to the fact that Izuku wanted to be nowhere near any source of radiation. Zoom is incredibly useful, being able to see about 1 kilometer 3 kilometers out. Apparently the last user could see up to 5 kilometers out. I tried combining it with thermal once. I regretted that almost instantly, however, as it felt like my eyes were burning from the strain, but quirks are like muscles, and I'll need to train so I can do that. After training this with another one of my quirks tempo, I can successfully handle the strain for around 5 seconds. X-ray vision. Dark vision, I need to find a better name for this one. It darkens the world around and causes living things to become a yellow silhouette. He has about 15-25 feet of range with this at the moment. I need to come up with a better name. Oh, I know, I'll call it dark vision. Jetstream, emitter-type quirk. Allows the user to fire bursts of typhoon-level winds from their palms. With proper practice, the quirk can be used to fly. This is by far my favorite quirk. The winds can reach up to 200 miles per hour with only 150 miles per hour being needed to lift the average weight person off the ground. And since Izuku is a child, he needs much less for takeoff. It's unfortunate that Izuku can only make winds of around 80-110 miles per hour. He wanted to fly so badly. Overuse leads to the person feeling like they have been running for a very long time. He's really glad All Might helped him train his endurance because I can hold the quirk on for a good 10 minutes at this point. The stronger the gust, the faster you exhaust it. I can only hold 80-110 miles per hour gusts for around a minute, half an hour. His cooling quirk had really helped with that one at the moment. Combustion, emitter-type quirk. Allows the user to manipulate any fire within a 30 feet 45-foot radius. It has almost no drawback and allows for free movement of the fire almost perfectly. The downside is there already has to be a fire. So at the moment it's pretty useless to him, but hopefully down the line he get a fire quirk because combined with this one will give Izuku a ton of options. See below. Fire breath, mutation type quirk. Allows the user to breathe fire from their lungs that can reach upwards of 800 degrees Fahrenheit. The longer the user holds the fire, the more injured the throat of the user becomes. Almost completely negated to the next quirk listed, I am only held back by the amount of air in my lungs now. Honestly, with my skill set, I could just pretend I was a fire user at this point. The quirk of his father Hisashi Midoriya, the only time Izuku broke his role and stole a quirk. Minor fire resistance, mutation type quirk, grants the user the ability to withstand up to 600-degree temperatures comfortably. As long as I keep my fire lower than or at that temperature, I will be fine and can continually use my fire breath, and combustion works incredibly well when combined with the two. I am probably the worst nightmare for a fire quirk user to fight at this point. Silence, emitter type quirk. When activated, the user becomes incapable of making any sound whatsoever. This includes speech, walking, etc. It literally erases sound from the person using it. Overuse leads to the person becoming deaf for a period of time. Overuse usually occurs at around 510 minutes. Izuku has no idea what causes it get used faster than normal sometimes. Maybe it's the amount of sound he makes while using the quirk? It is indeed the sound made by the user. I screamed at the mirror for like 2 minutes before the feeling of deafness hit me. Tempo, emitter type quirk. The user activates adrenaline in their body, which makes it appear as if the user has either doubled the speed at which time passes or have the speed at which time passes for the next 5 seconds. The user's physical body is still only able to move at their normal speed during these 5 seconds. Only the mind is able to keep up with the new speed. It essentially allows you to fight in slow mo for the next 5 seconds, doubling a person's reaction time. I still haven't found a good use for the doubling of time part of the quirk. Using it for more than 5 seconds without waiting for the 10-minute, 1-minute cooldown time results in a migraine similar to that of overusing all for one. Minor regeneration, mutation/emitter type quirk. He was confused as to how to class this one, since it technically changes his body, but it also doesn't have any physical properties, so he just went with both. The user must actively think about healing whichever part of his body he wishes to heal when trying to this quirk. It is not a passive ability. The process at which it does so is incredibly slow, and to restore entire parts of the body, it usually takes around an entire day. Thankfully, they had an example of this already, and Izuku didn't have to cut his arm off to find out, since apparently the previous user had lost an entire limb and had it back by the next day. The quirk consumes lipids to heal the body, meaning overuse can lead to malnourishment among other things. Molecular manipulation, emitter type quirk, allows the user to control molecules, but only as a function of increasing or decreasing their vibration speed. He can speed them up or down, causing the object to cool or heat rapidly. He mainly used it on himself to keep his breathing level via slowing down his own molecules and cooling himself down. Theoretically, he could melt a person or freeze their insides with this, but he is not and will not try that in the future. Nedzu had just finished reading the book. The boy took even better notes when he had time to properly study, it seems. Izuku, what is this part about taking your father's quirk? Oh shit, he said out loud before realizing that he hadn't just thought that. I forgot that was in there. I promise you it was warranted in the situation. I'm sure you all remember who the dragon is. He went around using his flame breath to murder and terrorize people. Turns out he was my father. I already told All Might this, but when he found out I was quirkless, he beat my mom and left. I hadn't seen him once until about 5 months ago. He came back to hurt me for ruining his reputation. It was then that I realized who he was. He couldn't be the scary villain he was when he had a quirkless child after all. I took it and took him to the police station anonymously after knocking him out. I'm so sorry I never told you, All Might, but it was really personal, and I didn't want to hurt my mom even more than she was already hurting. All Might was surprised the boy had kept something like that from him, but could he really blame the boy if it was self-defense against an active abuser? It's fine, my boy, just make sure you tell me in the future. Have you used your quirk ever besides that without us knowing? We need to know. He leveled a look at the boy as if to tell him that this was the moment to come clean. No, I promise I haven't. Not once, I swear. Izuku pleadingly, hoping this wouldn't ruin his chances. Nedzu just looked at the boy for a bit. While I do not blame you for this situation since you were being actively attacked by a known murderer, however, I would like to let you know that the police have given you 3 chances, and I will be counting this as one of your mistakes. Nedzu looked at him disappointedly. I am not mad at your quirk usage. I'm sad you never thought you could tell us about such a situation. I would have thought you trusted at least All Might by now. Indeed, he was not angry at the boy, just sad he had thought he couldn't trust someone with that knowledge. Izuku was so angry at himself at that moment. Of course they wouldn't have cared, he literally had a provisional license, and now he's down to only 2 chances left. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. I swear if I am forced to use my quirk outside of my specified bounds, you will all be the first to hear it. Izuku said, bowing once more. Thanking his stars he still had a chance. Aizawa glared at him. Well, hopefully he's honest and won't do it again, he thought. But from what he'd heard, the boy was definitely acting in a rational manner there. You'll have detention with me for the first week due to illegal quirk usage. Other than that, I have no complaints. Are we done with this meeting yet? Nedzu simply nodded, adjourning the meeting. Outside the principal's office, All Might just pulled Izuku into a hug. Remember, my boy, you can come to me for anything. I do mean that. Izuku sobbing quietly. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. And with that, a hellish 9 months passed for Momo. But she had done it. The beach was fully clean. She had never been so proud of herself. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the dank basement of a moderately stylish bar, a black gate opens and a child falls to the floor. A wispy black man in a suit walks in behind the child. I have collected the boy you asked for, sensei. The boy, to all his credit, was doing his best not to freak out, but when you get shoved through a portal and some kind of sentient cloud is talking, it would unnerve most people. But then a voice entered the child's brain. Calm yourself, child. I will not harm you if you speak to me truthfully. I shall know if you are lying, though, and there's one thing I cannot tolerate. I'm sure you can understand what that thing is. The voice in his head chuckling, but a dark, horrifying laugh, not to mention the fear this man radiates. He knew the threat was very real and quickly clammed up and nodded back to the figure. It was dark in here, so he wasn't able to quite make the man out. Good. Now tell me your quirk. It allows you to create super sharp and strong teeth, yes. The boy nodded. Now then, I hear you were part of this second awakening of quirks. But that's not really the case, is it, child? How did you get your quirk? The boy was screaming internally. He knew he wasn't supposed to talk about this. He would get in so much trouble, but it's better than dying. There is an organization that helps the quirkless, like myself. It's called the National Foundation for Quirkless Individuals. They told me about a procedure that could potentially awaken a dormant quirk if I have one. I mean, who wouldn't jump at the chance? Every day I was bullied and beaten down for being quirkless. So I accepted and they put me under. When I wake up, I can suddenly do this. He flexes his teeth. I swear that's all I know. The figure just smiled, or he thought they were smiling. Good child, I believe you. You may leave now, but I doubt you'll remember this. A portal appeared below the boy, and he was gone. Sensei, that is 4th second awakening quirk user, and the 3rd different organization for quirkless offering a surgery to grant quirks. Someone major has to be backing this. The wispy man pondered aloud. I know, Kurogiri. I think that this means an old project of mine succeeded. He laughed again. I almost forgot about it, if I'm being honest, as I started it over 150 years ago. This had been a very good development. 9 grueling months had passed, but finally she cleaned this stupid beach. She knew Izuku loved the sunrise, and she could finally agree with his opinion. Momo was screaming out a victory yell. She had done it, and if she was being honest, she looked good. No more baby fat, just pure tone muscle. All Might appeared next to her, changing into his buff form. Oh my goodness, you go-getter you. Not only did you clean outside where I specified, but you finished with a month to spare. All Might was beaming. Young Yaoyorozu, I was once told this saying, something you receive because you are lucky and something that you are given because you are recognized are different in essence. This is power you have earned. Now eat this. All Might saying all this while ripping out one of his own hairs. Momo went from awestruck to dumbstruck. Wah. You need to ingest something with my DNA to transfer the quirk, young Yaoyorozu, and my hair is the least disgusting thing that you can eat. All Might looked so convincing while saying all this. Momo, to all her credit, took the hair, coughingly swallowed the thing. That was one of the grossest things I've ever done, All Might. I just want to let you know that. Also, hair tastes disgusting. So now what? Izuku had been silently watching the whole affair from a distance. He felt it was a private moment and shouldn't interject, but he also couldn't help but laugh at the look on Momo's face. After deflating, well, now we wait. It should be digested within a few hours, and then we can begin practicing with it, young Yaoyorozu. In the meantime, let's go get food. Speaking of quirks, I've been wondering, Momo, how is the progress with your original quirk going? Have any of my other suggestions worked? Izuku, ever being the quirk nerd that he was. Oh yes, quite a few of them. I have managed to make sleeping gas just pour out of my body for one, essentially making me a knockoff Midnight. I also was able to figure out that trick which allowed me to produce flame, but that just burned me, so I doubt I'll be using it very much. I still haven't been able to create water and then regulate the temperature in order to produce ice instead, but I am working on it. As for things you told me to learn to make, learning to make things out of different elements was a really smart move. I found that carbon ring structure you recommended incredibly useful. Ever since I learned it, I make any armor and blunt weapons out of it. When you told me about that wonder material that wasn't being used because it couldn't be mass-produced, I'll admit I was skeptical at first that such a thing even existed, but I was able to recreate it fairly quickly. I do have to wonder though, Izuku, where do all these ideas even come from? I doubt I would have thought of any of these myself. Momo looked kinda sad about that statement. Izuku only chuckled slightly before replying. PSSH, you're right, Momo. You're like the smartest person I know. I'm sure you would have figured it out on your own eventually. I did tell you. You could destabilize the global economy in a month, you know. So stop putting yourself down so much. You're so much better than you give yourself credit for. He smiled brightly at the girl who in turn was blushing profusely. He is right, young Yaoyorozu. You should give yourself some more credit. After all, you are my successor. Having the number one compliment you was certainly an interesting experience, Momo thought to herself. A few hours after breakfast, the trio returned to the beach to train with One for All. All right, young Yaoyorozu. To use my quirk, first clench your butt cheeks, then yell smash. Go ahead and make a fist and try swinging it. All Might instructing the girl to do so. Izuku, upon hearing the worst advice he had ever heard, ran over. No. Time out. All Might, are you crazy? You said she could explode potentially. We can't have risk her losing her limbs due to the backlash of One for All. You told me yourself you never had trouble with the quirk, but explain to me in detail how exactly it feels and works. Well, young Midoriya, it's just kinda like whoosh and slam, you know? The man looked proud as he said it. Izuku just deadpanned. All Might, that was the worst description I've literally ever heard. Alright, I'm taking over this training session. You okay with that, Momo? Sure, let's hear what you got, oh great master of the quirks. She snickered at him. Well, first off, and this is very important, do not actually move any part of you once activate One for All. Second, try to only activate it in your pinky, so if something does break it won't be as serious. Third, once you've got it activated, just hold the quirk there and try to lower the output of the quirk to as low as you can. Do you think you can try that? All Might kinda looked embarrassed by the fact Izuku was able to break that down so much better than him. Did he really just try to make the girl throw a 100% punch as the first thing she did with the quirk? Even he couldn't handle 100% at first. God, he was dumb. Young Yaoyorozu, I would listen to young Midoriya's advice. It sounds quite sound to me. Momo then began concentrate on her new quirk. She felt it like it was a pool, a deep pool with nearly infinite energy she could move around her body. She did as All Might said and clenched her cheeks, letting the energy move to her pinky. Her pinky started crackling with black lightning as 100% of her power coursed through the spot. She was amazed. She felt so powerful. But next she did as Izuku asked and attempted to lower the energy, the black lightning lessening as every second passed until it was only a small crackling instead of the fierce thunder she had before. If she had to give the amount a number, she would say it felt like 3%. I think I did it, she said squeamishly. See, look, I told you you were smart, Momo. You did it on the first try. He was giving her a bright smile and a thumbs up. You know, the more she saw Izuku's cute dimples with that smile, no, not now, mind. Definitely not now. What should I do now? I don't know, young Yaoyorozu, try flicking it out. If it doesn't break anything, we will try an actual fist at that level of strength. All Might added in. She flicked and a small gust of wind came out. Internally, she was freaking out. This was 3%? It already makes enough pressure to send out wind gusts? Izuku just smiled at her shock. Good job, Momo. Is anything broken? She looked over her pinky and smiled. She was fine. Nope, Izuku, I'm totally fine. Now try making a fist and punching with that same force young Yaoyorozu. All Might suggested. She did as instructed, and small black crackling began to surround her right arm. She swung her fist, making a noticeably larger gust of wind this time. This was her. Holy shit. Izuku was busy being betrayed by his mind. Damn, that was hot. Nope, no, 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 brain, not now. She could probably crush my head with those thighs. Brain, no. All Might was the next to speak. Young Yaoyorozu. That was impressive for a first attempt. For the next month, we will focus on slowly raising your percentage of control. Whenever you are alone or have the chance, I would recommend keeping one for all activated and slowly raising the percentage as you feel your body adapt to it. For now, this was a good first attempt. However, we should call it quits for the day. And so a month passed, and it was the day of the recommendation exam at UA High, the exam itself taking place the day before the actual entrance exams. This allowed the people taking it to take the regular exam if they failed this one. As she stood staring at the gates of the school, she knew this was it. Everything she had prepared for starts today. She knew she would pass the written exam with flying colors, but she wasn't so sure she would pass the practical exam. At least she had 2 chances, she thought. She walked into the building, meeting with the proctor and being sent into a room with 19 other students. Only the top 4 would pass the recommendation exams, but she knew she had this. The written exams were first, and she felt like was steamrolling through the test. She was the first person done and had to sit around for another like 30 minutes before all the others finished their exam. Once that was over, a man with cockatiel-looking yellow hair and a speaker system announced to his neck appeared. Hey, listeners, are you ready? Say yeah. No one spoke. I see we're taking this low-key today. Alright, I'm going to be the proctor for this exam. My name is Present Mike, and I'll explain the rules now. Yeah. He pointed to the board at the front, and it turned on, revealing what looked like an obstacle course. The goal is simple: get to the end of the obstacle course first. Young listeners, you can use anything you have to your advantage, but purposely attacking your fellow examinees is against the rules and will get you disqualified. But that doesn't stop you from trying to slow them down with your quirks. Say yeah. Alright, let's get out there. Plus, ultra. And with that, they were lead from the room. Momo walked up to the starting line nervously. She could already see the first obstacle, what appeared to be robots. She was dragged from her thoughts when Present Mike suddenly shouted, "Ready, Go." When no one moved, Present Mike just calmly said, "There are no starting bells in real life, listeners. Go." After that, a boy with bicolored red and white hair started sprinting and then threw a wave of ice behind him to try and stop the group from moving. Momo barely reacted in time, throwing 5% of one for all into her legs and jumped over the wave of ice, landing safely on the part that had already frozen over. From there, she just started sprinting as fast as she could. The ice boy had already cleared the robots. She was catching up slowly when a robot got into the way. She aimed both her legs at it and crashed into its face, crushing said face instantly. During that brief distraction, a guy with black hair and some kind of wind quirk sped past her, followed by what appeared to be a girl who split herself into 20 different pieces and was just flying them forward. Definitely one of the weirder things she's seen. Getting herself out of her funk, she barreled after them with a girl with vine-like hair in close pursuit behind her. She reached the next obstacle rather quickly. It was a large pit of quicksand. Ice Boy had been freezing ahead of himself and melting it behind him as he crossed. The wind guy just flew over the pit, passing the Ice Boy taking first, while the Pieces girl was floating over at a slower speed. Momo realized she needed to be able to fly to get past this. She used creation to make herself a wingsuit, which for reason, after melding with OFA, was now black in color, and the things she produced came out way faster. She briefly charged OFA to 10% black lightning jumping from her legs before she leaped as high and far as she could, opening the wingsuit at the apex of her jump and gliding past the quicksand. She even managed to pass the girl who split herself. Momo had noticed the girl was slowing down a lot as well. But she also realized that brief use of 10% hurt. She felt her bones creaking from the strain before deciding she won't be doing that again. The last and final obstacle entered her view, and it was some kind of wind tunnel. The turbines were so high she didn't think she could leap over it. She was just going to have to push through. She created a sheet of carbon in a V shape with a handle kind of like a shield, but the angle made it so she would be much less wind resistant by diverting the wind around her, lessening her drag. She charged 5% and just sprinted into the tunnel. Noticing she was having a much easier time of it than the ice boy, she even managed to pass him. That being said, she couldn't even see the wind guy, but as she was getting closer to the end, the wind just kept getting stronger and stronger. She was next to the end, but had slowed to a crawl by that point. It was at this point that the girl with vines for hair was starting to catch up, since she cut her hair to push herself through the wind and then anchor herself at the same time. Thankfully, managing to get past the wind tunnel just in time to keep her advantage, she barreled into the finish line, taking second place for herself. The Vine Girl getting third and Ice Boy getting fourth. The girl that could split herself arrived fifth, and a while after that the rest of the other 20 managed to reach the finish line. She couldn't believe herself. She had done it. She didn't get first, but that was only 5% of her power. Well, a bit of 10% for a second or two, but she couldn't wait to hit even 50% of her power. President Mike showed up in a bit and explained the rankings to the students. Many looked dejected when they heard their score, especially the girl who could split herself. They were all top if they weren't in the top 5 positions in the practical that they should take the regular exam the next day. She called her driver Minato to come pick her up, and she went home, very happy with herself. She tried to call All Might, but he wasn't picking up. Well, he could just tell in the news later. She managed to call Izuku, however, and he was just so happy for her. Izuku knew she was getting in for sure. A week later, and lo and behold, a letter from Yue arrived. Her family made her put it on in the viewing room for them all to watch. I am coming to you as a projection. Why was All Might at Yue? Momo thought to herself. You are probably wondering, why am I here? Well, surprise, young Yaoyorozu, you are looking at Yue's newest instructor of heroics. I will be happy to let you that you passed the written portion of the exam within 100, a perfect score, combined with the fact you placed second in the practical exam. You tied for the first overall spot, but due to the other person withdrawing from Yue. Congratulations, young Yaoyorozu, for placing first in the exam. This is your hero academia. The projection stopped there. She couldn't believe it. Even if it was a technicality, she arrived in first place at Yue. Her parents pulled her into the biggest hug ever, crying for their daughter. We knew you could do it, sweetie, but first place, that's amazing. We're so proud of you. That was her mother, Yara Yaoyorozu. Her father, Mitoshi Yaoyorozu, just wiped his eyes and said, You did it, sport. We always knew you would be great. He then pulled her deeper into the hug. That lasted for a good 10 minutes before it ended. She texted Izuku before bed. 3D printer. Hey Isa, guess what? Cinnamon bun. Hey Momo. No idea, smiley face. 3D printer. You personally know the #1 entrant exam for the recommendations. I will allow you to grovel at my feet due to my greatness. Cinnamon bun. Yes, my lady. I shall prostrate myself before you upon our next meeting. But on a serious note, I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it, laughing face. 3D printer. Please don't grovel at my feet. Cinnamon bun. Does this not please the young missus? I am able to perform other functions. 3D printer. Please stop D. Cinnamon bun. Is that an emoji, young lady? I knew that commoner swine was corrupting you. 3D printer. PSSH, if that commoner is a swine, then I am a swine as well. Cinnamon bun. My word, the young lady is no such thing. 3D printer. Just stop, Isa, you're cute enough already, winky face. Cinnamon bun. Ostfaj jap jap, you can't just call me cute. You're drop dead gorgeous. Does he really think that? 3D printer. Ahem, well, I'll take that as a compliment, but I am going to sleep. We have school tomorrow, Izu. Cinnamon bun. Don't remind me. That last test was brutal. But yes, CYA tomorrow, smiley face. It was the day before classes were supposed to start, and Momo just arrived at the dorms. She quickly walked over to the dormitory's floor plan, noticing she had room 202. Momo quickly instructed the movers her family had brought with her to bring her stuff up to her room, but what she didn't realize was how small the dorms were going to be. Her bed ended up taking like 70% of the room, and she realized that this just wouldn't do. So she had the movers take the bed back and created her own bed. This way her piano could fit comfortably in the room. It would probably be hard to get used to sleeping on a twin-sized bed, but she imagined she could do it. After all, she had more pressing matters at the moment. After all, she hadn't seen Izuku for over a week. Apparently, he had moved in like a week early, and she needed to see him. And after that, she needed to find All Might. It was roughly noon when the movers were finished, and she walked back into the common room. She looked at the board, finding out that Izuku had room 502. She immediately marched up to that floor to find him, but as she went to open the door, it opened before her, revealing the figure of some woman with pink dreadnoughts for hair and plus symbols for eyes. She wasn't sure why seeing another girl in Izuku's room bothered her as much as it did, but she certainly didn't like it. "Excuse me, is Izuku here?" she asked the girl, who just turned back in manic glee. "You know him? We've made so many babies together. He's the best partner I could ask for," the pink-haired girl replied. Momo decided at this moment she really didn't like this girl and babies. What the hell was she talking about? Her thoughts were interrupted when Izuku emerged from the room. "Sorry, ignore that baby's comment. She calls her inventions babies for some reason. This is Hatsum. I met her when I moved in early. Apparently something similar was done for her because she's insanely smart. We've just been working on some inventions together. It's good to see you, Momo." The boy smiled at her, and the relief was immediate. "Oh well, it's nice to meet you, Hatsumi-san. But why were you in Izuku's room?" She tried her best to hide how agitated the girl made her. "Simple. We were trying to make more babies. He gave me some great ideas, and oh, you're that Momo, the one who can create things. Oh, we're gonna be best friends. You make me materials, and I'll build you the best of the best." Momo honestly did not understand this girl who was currently feeling her up. She was legitimately scared of the ball of energy in front of her. "Sorry, Momo. She's very handsy, but she has the best intentions, I promise," Izuku said, trying to reassure her. "Anyway, I must go. There's inventing to be done." As suddenly as she appeared, the girl, she disappeared, screaming as she ran down the hallway. "Alright, so I gotta know, how did that happen, Izuku?" Momo wasn't sure what she felt after the girl's sudden appearance and subsequent disappearance. "PSSH, well, you always know how you said I was analytically smart. Well, apparently the principal thought the same thing, and he had me meet Hatsum in order to give her inspiration. We kind of hit it off after that. But who cares about that? It's so good to see you, number one." He beamed at her. Momo blushed slightly. "Please don't call me that." "But it's true. I told you you were amazing," bringing a thumbs up into view. She just coughed, trying to dodge the subject. "Well, all right then, but how about you show me around campus? I just got here, and you've been here for around a week already after all." "Oh boy, would I. The food here is amazing. Have you met Lunch Rush yet? I swear the food he makes is the best thing I've ever tasted, especially the katsudan. Regardless, any place you want to start? I was kind of given free rein by Nedzu, so I've just been running all over campus, exploring the mountains and such." Izuku smiled sheepishly. "Why not show me our classroom first? Then we can go exploring the rest of campus. And oh, who's going to be our homeroom teacher?" she asked. "Well, I was told not to ruin the surprise, so I can't tell you who our homeroom teacher is. He apparently likes to make a strong first impression. But I can do the rest of that. Let me lead you to 1A's classroom." They walked silently for a bit until they reached the massive doors of the school. "Wow, these are rather large doors," the black-haired girl thought out loud. "Yeah, I think it's because some people have quirks that make them massive. This school isn't the best in the country for no reason, and I'm pretty sure they are just trying to cover all bases with these. Though I could entirely be wrong." "Izuku, if I've learned anything over the 4 years I've known you, it's that you are rarely wrong." Giggling to herself, thinking about all the times Izuku's dumb ideas turned out to be correct, she still enjoyed making his stupid ideas come to fruition. She can still remember the joy of having made a tranquilizer gun for the first time. Izuku just brushed his own hair at that compliment. "Well, thanks, I learned from the best," he said, beaming back at her. That smile, that damn smile. This boy was literally a cinnamon bun. If she ever found this Bakugo person that Izuku had mentioned bullied him in the past, she was going to grind him into the floor. "Well, that's the classroom. Got any favorite spots yet, Izuku?" "I've got the perfect spot, follow me," he said while grabbing her by the hand and pulling her up the staircase until they reached the roof. She watched Izuku try the handle, however it was locked. But then Izuku did something completely unexpected, and he grabbed the doorknob, and it melted onto the floor, after which he just pushed it open. Izuku just looked at her, grinning, and said, "Well, my quirk was on the fritz. Shame what happened to that doorknob, but it was completely unavoidable." Momo just giggled, hoping they wouldn't get into too much trouble for this. "I found this the first day I got here. The door wasn't locked then, but I guess it's changed since then, but the view is absolutely amazing, especially at sunrise or sunset. It reminds me of Dagoba Beach. He had this look to him, like he could see everything from this spot. The secrets of the universe unraveling only to him. Honestly, Momo, I'm so glad I met you. I hope you feel the same. Izuku trying to avoid her gaze as he said this. PSSH Izuku, if anything I should be the one thanking you. Thanks to you, I not only improved my quirk, I met All Might. I got one for all. I reached first place in the UA recommendation exams, and I get to stare at your dorky face all the time. Momo was looking down as she said this, trying to hide her blush. Finally, she summoned some courage and walked over to the boy. She grabbed his head and forced it to look at her, noticing the blush on his face just as much as hers. I like you, Izuku. She then pressed her face into his. It was just a light peck, but she knew it was reciprocated when he pulled her back into him. It was almost funny since Izuku was shorter than her. Momo whispered into his ear. I've been wanting to do that for a while now, Izu. I think I figured out how I felt the night you were at the hospital. I'd never cared for anyone that much before, but I just didn't know how to tell you. To her relief, Izuku just said, oh, thank God. I wasn't sure how long I could keep the childhood friend thing going. Every time I looked at you, I just saw this Amazonian warrior goddess. It's literally been driving me insane. Izuku paused. So, are we dating? Momo blushed at the first comment, then sniggered in her usual fashion. Only if you want to be. She then pulled him in for another kiss. As much as I'd like to continue this, we really should get back to the dorms, Izu. He decided at that moment. He really liked that nickname. Yeah, probably. The other students will be getting here soon. Do you want to keep us on the down low for now? Izuku wasn't sure which option he wanted. He wanted to scream to the world that Momo was his, but he also wanted to keep that information hidden. Let's keep it quiet for now. We can have a big outing ourselves surprise later down the line. After all, we have no idea what kinds of people will be in our class. That sounded smart to Izuku, and this girl got a 100 on her written exams, so he decided to just roll with it. Hey Izuku, she asked. Yeah, he responded. If I build us a parasail, can you fly us there? I've always wanted to fly. It sounds so liberating. Momo said with a dreamy look on her face. Izuku couldn't say no to that. Yeah, Momo, I can do that. He wasn't sure if he could if he was being honest, but that's never stopped him before. He started talking to his own quirk like it was a person. You better help me out here, Jetstream bud. Let's not blow this. The parasail was made and they went into the air, Izuku using Jetstream to keep their vertical height. They spent what felt like forever in the air before deciding to land on the roof of their dorms. They were thankfully able to land safely. Izuku used Jetstream to make them land safely, pointing one forward and one down. They hadn't accounted for one thing, however, which was yet another locked rooftop door. Izuku just smiled and walked over to it before melting the thing. It's really weird how doorknobs keep melting in front of us, Momo. She just giggled back at him. Spontaneous combustion is a dangerous thing, Izuku. Don't joke about it. They both just started howling, even knowing they would probably get into trouble this later. They walked down to the bottom floor, finding a dorm meeting had apparently already been taking place. When they looked at the clock, they both swore they really had been in air for a while. A man with blue hair and glasses quickly approached them, both of which were spooked by the sudden action of the imposingly tall person in question. I am Tinya Ida. It is a pleasure to make both of your acquaintances. However, the dorm meeting was scheduled for over 15 minutes ago. Where have you been? As students of UA, we need to be the perfect role models for the rest of the world. Tardiness is unacceptable. I also noticed that you both have come from the stairs. If you were already here, you should have been aware of this meeting already. Both of them were just so flabbergasted by the irate blue-haired boy basically screaming in their faces it took them a bit to formulate a response. Izuku was the first to respond. Well, you know, we've just been hanging around. Momo giggled, the pun not being lost on her. UA is not a place for hanging around. I suggest that you leave if you are not taking things here seriously. The bespectacled boy said to him. Izuku was joking at first, but he was no longer in a joking mode, especially after seeing a mop of spiky blonde hair in the background. All right, then I guess we are going to take things seriously. Izuku cracked his neck before continuing. He breathed and then let out a flaming roar to the surprise of everyone in the room. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and I will be your class representative. Eraserhead, care to take it away? Izuku said, looking to the yellow caterpillar that had slowly been worming its way into the room. You ruined my intro, problem child. He sighed exaggeratedly. My name is Aizawa Shoyuta, and I will be your homeroom teacher. Normally things would work differently, but thanks to this idiot, they won't be. He said, pointing at Izuku. You all have already signed a non-disclosure agreement regarding things at UA. He paused, letting them take it in. However, there is a second reason for that. I will give anyone in this room 5 seconds to leave. If you do not leave, you are about to be trusted with a secret that would rock all of Hero Society. If you break this trust, you will, and I quote, be destroyed in the most unethical fashion our legal department is capable of. If you believe yourself unable to keep a secret, now is your only chance to leave. No one did. Well, you passed the first test. Izuku, why don't you go ahead and show them what the secret is? And I swear to God, if you melt another doorknob, your detention is getting extended to a month. And yes, I know about that. Well, shit, Izuku thought to himself. How does he know about that? There weren't any cameras near the doors. Well, honestly, it'd be easier to show. Are there any volunteers? And oh, by the way, one of you already knows the secret. It's been a while, hasn't it, Bakugo? He sarcastically grinned at the boy when he saw the fear in his eyes. A round-faced girl with brown hair and pads on her fingertips stepped forward. I'd be willing to volunteer, but what is it I'll be doing? She was definitely scared by this whole ordeal. I promise it's nothing scary, just come over and give me a handshake, Izuku said as calmly as possible. However, the explosive teen in the back took this opportunity to shout at the top of his lungs. Don't let that fuck touch you, round face, he can steal quirks. The girl in question just jumped back. Oh, it's no fun to ruin a surprise, Kakin, he said as sarcastically as possible. But yes, I can take and give quirks. I have been doing so for over 2 years now. Surely you all have heard of the second awakening of quirks. That was all me. I've been taking quirks from criminals and giving them to those who need them more. I promise you, while I am here, your quirk is safe. I may take it during a training session, but I am under extreme regulations. If I am told to return one, I must, and I will never keep it past the end of a training session. I am sure some of you are scared of what I am capable of, but I promise you, I will never break these rules, Izuku said while bowing. As an example, Momo, can I borrow creation? The girl just nodded and gave the boy a handshake, after which Izuku had taken creation. He thought of the best thing he could make. He created a small grenade made of plastic and threw it at Bakugo. He then walked back over and returned the quirk to Momo, who then created an origami swan. See, completely harmless, and I returned it instantly, Izuku said matter-of-factly. The students in front of him were just struck in awe before a pink-haired alien girl starting shouting in the back. Midori, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Midori? He thought, but then he also saw a purple-haired student looking at him with neither fear nor awe, just understanding. The guy kind of reminded him of Aizawa, if he was being honest. Speaking of the devil, he cut back in. You can see why he's being kept a secret. His quirk is one of the strongest ever seen. He made it in on recommended recommendation. The principal had to make it up just to let him in. Like Midoriya said, however, he has strict guidelines, and if he even remotely steps out of line, he's done. So rest assured that you all are safe with him around. Now let's get to the normal stuff. Curfew is at 8 p.m. You will not be caught in another person's room after this period. For some reason, Aizawa was staring at Izuku while he said that. The fridge will be stocked weekly, however, you will be responsible for making your own breakfast and dinner. On the first floor, we have the common room, the kitchen, and the laundry room. For every floor above that, it rotates. Females will be on even-numbered floors and males on odd-numbered floors. My room will also be on the 5th floor, room 505. Only come to see me if it's an emergency. Otherwise, like Midoriya said, he is your class representative. Go to him first. Izuku winced at that, knowing it was definitely revenge for him ruining Aizawa's surprise. No questions? Good. With that, the man climbed back into his sleeping bag and scuttled off. Not surprisingly, the first thing he heard was a person screaming the word Deku, to which he pointedly ignored until said figure grabbed him by the shoulder, hands crackling. DKU, how the fuck did you get into UA without even having to take the test? I bet you fucking threatened them with your villain's quirk, didn't you? Izuku, for all his credit, just laughed. Really, that's how you think I got in, Kakin? You're even more conceited than I thought. I had hoped some time without me being around would fix you, but clearly it hasn't. Also, if I have such a villainous quirk, why do you still have yours? Momo was next to Izuku, having realized that this was the Bakugo that tormented her boyfriend. How that was weird to say, but it felt really right. She was about to walk up and slap the guy, but Izuku made it clear he had it handled. Listen up, everyone. Izuku shouted. The only reason this shell of a human being made into this school is because I let him. He is a bully and a villain who used his quirk to abuse people just because he could, and it was not an isolated incident. He did it for at least the 6 years I knew him. Aizawa was supposed to tell you this, but I guess it falls to me now. My situation is special, which I'm sure you already all realize, but I do have the trust of the police and the school. This thing in front of me is one of the most volatile and awful human beings I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. If it weren't for the fact he was never officially reported for all his misdeeds, I would have robbed him of his quirk long ago. He is here to improve himself and become what a hero should be. If he ever threatens you or hurts you, let me or Aizawa-sensei know and he is out. End of story. Do you understand, Kaken? Izuku had never seen such indignant fury on Bakugo before. Usually it was visible explosive rage, but this was silent, vindictive. To his credit, he just stomped off to wherever his room was. Momo beside Izuku just stared in awe. She had never seen Izuku so angry, so commanding. It was kinda hot. Sorry about that, everyone. I just had to let him know the stakes before he did something stupid. Izuku bowed to the rest of the class. I promise you I am on your side. If you need anything, feel free to let me know. The first to respond was the pink girl from earlier. Midori, that was so cool. The way you can just grab quirks and use them. Do you want to try mine out? I can make acid and shoot it out from my skin. Izuku rubbed his hair. Honestly, that sounds like a quirk I couldn't use. Your skin has more than likely toughened your skin over the years. If I were to try to use it, I'd likely hurt myself. He said sheepishly. Oh, and what's up with Midori? It's a cute nickname, isn't it? I like cute nicknames. She said, smiling. The round-faced girl who volunteered earlier spoke up next. I'm sorry about being scared of you after Bakugo started screaming. He made it sound like you were a villain, which I can see you're not. As an apology, can you take my quirk? It lets me remove gravity from things, and I want to let you know I trust you. Izuku walked up to the girl and shook her hand, grabbing the string that was her quirk. It was bouncy and loose, almost as if there was no weight to the string. Wow, this is really weird. As he felt the pads on his fingertips grow, he grabbed a fork from the cabinet and started floating it. How that's a really interesting quirk. As he touched the fork, it loses gravitational pull but keeps the mass. It could be used to potentially hit people with very heavy objects. The best way I can describe it, as if you were placing an object in a zero-G environment, in an environment where gravity is very much still in effect. My best advice for the combat aspect of this quirk would be to get a very heavy object, yet compact object, kind of like a paperweight. Maybe strap it to a belt. Then you could freely use it as a bludgeon. Momo just started laughing, very used to the scene in front of her, while the other two girls were extremely confused. Sorry, he just really likes quirks. I think it's because of his quirk. Take it as a compliment. If your quirk manages to make him go on a mumble spree, it's intriguing enough to have multiple possible aspects. Aha, sorry, Uraraka-san, here you go. He said, holding his hand out, which she accepted, taking her quirk back. See no pain, he said while smiling at her. Two boys in the background watching this spectacle with awe. One with purple hair in absolute confusion, as if this should be impossible, the other changing his expression into sheer determination. The second walked up to the group of people, waving his arms robotically. I apologize, Izuku Midoriya. I have misjudged you heinously. You clearly are a step above the rest of us if the school trusts you as imbecility as it does. I even confronted you for being late when you were supposed to arrive after the teacher had. The boy clearly had the wrong idea about the situation, but let's roll with it. No problem, Zaidakin. I apologize for ruining the surprise and for snapping at you. He just smiled back at the boy. Behind him, Mina was cornering Momo. So what's the story with you and Midori? You arrived together. You seem to already know his secrets, and I saw that glare from Aizawa-sensei when he said no sharing rooms. Mina said in a way that made it clear she knew something was going on. Momo just huffed. We're good friends, all right. I've known him for 4 years. Trying and failing to forget how they were kissing literally 30 minutes ago. Oh, sure, girl. I'll catch you. Just you wait. Momo was heavily blushing at this point. just trying to hide her face. Returning to the conversation between Ida and Izuku. Ida would like to also offer this chance at trust, and as such I present my quirk. Thrusting his hand forward. Izuku stared at it for a second before replying. Mutation quirks hurt when transferred. Are you certain? The other boy just nodded. So Izuku took his hand and took the quirk. Izuku felt the pain in the back of his calves. It burned. Having metallic engines suddenly implanted was not a good feeling if he was being honest, but he endured. Ida, are you okay? The other boy was wincing as well. It is nothing I cannot handle. However, I do see what you meant by uncomfortable. My legs feel immensely lighter now without the engines attached. Could you please return them, now Midoriya? Izuku complied, returning the engines. The feeling of them leaving only slightly better than having them surgically attached. I see. You are true to your word and will not misuse your quirk. It is good to see that power has not tempted you, Midoriya. I know many who would misuse the power you have been given. Ida said while chopping his arms in the air. The purple boy was still staring at the scene in disbelief, and Izuku felt it was finally time to address whatever the boy had against him. Can I help you? If you're scared of my quirk, I apologize. But like I've shown, I will put it back as soon as I am asked. I can even give people extra quirks and have done so in the past. The purple-haired boy just scoffed and walked off. Weird, Izuku thought, but not unexpected. His gaze returned to Momo, who was currently getting grilled by Mina. Catching the tailwind of the conversation and hearing things like boyfriend and do you like him, he decided to spare the poor girl. Hey Mina, want to see all the quirks I got? Thankful for the reprieve, Momo stepped away to go talk to other classmates. A particular floating set of clothes had piqued her interests. Mina just ran over to him and grabbed him. You would? Oh, please show me all your quirks. That comment was heard by the rest of the class, who wanted to know just how his quirk worked. After all, the boy had literally just been accepted into the #1 school with no tests, and rules were changed for him. In the background, Izuku could hear shouts of please and show us. Izuku herded the 18 other students outside, because doing this inside was just dumb. So I guess I better explain how my quirk works. I can take and give quirks via physical contact, but each person has a limit to the number of quirks they can handle. If you go over that limit, it's really bad, like potentially lethal. I can handle way more quirks than any other person I've met, but I can tell when I give quirks if that person is at their limit or not. I can currently hold 13 safely, but the average person can usually hold around 23 quirks. I can train my limit by having a number of quirks close to my limit. I am currently running 10 quirks, but my hard limit is 15. I stay at 10, so I can take a quirk in an emergency situation if you're wondering. He removed his contacts, showing his black scara. Those quirks are Ultra Sight, Fire Breathing, Jet Stream, Combustion, Minor Fire Resistance, Tempo, Super Strength, Minor Regeneration, Molecular Manipulation, and my original quirk, All for One. Izuku gave them a brief demonstration of the ones he could. He noticed he had especially caught the eye of the teenager with hybrid-colored hair. So yeah, that's all I can do. Any questions? All but 3 people's hands went up, and honestly, he wasn't surprised. The first was the boy with purple hair from earlier. So you have stolen all these quirks, a villainous quirk. How is it you've gotten on the good side of the law? Izuku paled at the word villainous quirk. Can I get your name first? Shinso Hitoshi. Well, Shinso, I'll just tell you what my mentor told me. No quirk is villainous, only the user. Imagine if All Might started ripping buildings in half and pancaking people. Would he suddenly have a villainous quirk? The boy who asked the question was flabbergasted. Next, Izuku pointed to a person who had weird circular-shaped elbows. Hi, my name is Siro Hanta, but you said you got all these quirks from villains. How did that happen? Well, I can't say everything that happened, but I was a late bloomer, and when my quirk first awakened, I stole someone else's. After that, the police decided I could help them. Almost every other hand shot down. After that, the only one remaining was Momo's. Yes, Momo. She just smirked. Why are you such a cinnamon bun? Just shut down after that, and everyone started laughing. Deciding he'd had enough, Momo grabbed Izuku and led him back inside with the rest of their class following close behind. The next day, welcome to homeroom. If you thought you would be doing something like presenting yourself or going to the orientation, well, you would be wrong. Every second is important, and the teachers here at UA are allowed as much freedom as they want. Aizawa pointed to a pile of gym clothes. Every one of you is to take one and meet me outside within the next 10 minutes, or you're expelled. People started moving after that. Although Aizawa didn't exactly specify where outside was, but thankfully Izuku knew what direction to point everyone in thanks to having already been here for a week. The entirety of the class ended up in a flat dirt-covered section of earth. The last person to arrive was noticeably a flying pile of clothes. Aizawa finally spoke. Your entire lives you've done these exercises for school, but you've never been allowed to do them while using your quirk. It's irrational, and it changes today. He looked to Midoriya. How far could you throw this in middle school, problem child? Around 50 meters, he replied. Good, now why don't you come and throw this ball as far as you can using your quirk? Just don't leave the circle, Aizawa said while deadpanning at the kid. My pleasure, Izuku said while tapping on Uraraka on the way over. To his credit, he just let the ball go and it flew into space, granting him an infinity score. As you all can see, using your quirks drastically changes the score you should have received while doing these, and Izuku, give it back. We have to see where everyone's baseline is, and if she doesn't have a quirk, we can't tell. Yes, Aizawa-sensei, Izuku replied while walking back and giving the gravity user a slap on the wrist. He whispered into her ear, see, still completely harmless. Smiling at her. Someone in the back made the mistake of saying this looked fun. Izuku thought it was the invisible girl, but wasn't 100% certain on that. Aizawa let out his creepy-ass grin after hearing that. Oh, fun is it? How about this then? The person who comes in last will be judged to have no potential and expelled. Everyone but Izuku and Momo paled at that. Izuku knew he was immune to expulsion for the most part, and Momo thought it was just an excuse to make people try harder because many students didn't have quirks related to this test. Meanwhile, All Might, having heard this, was worried from the spot he was hiding at. After all, he knew Aizawa had expelled his literal entire class last year. The first exercise ended up being a 50-meter sprint. Paired with Bakugo, it was sure to be interesting. He was tempted to just grab Bakugo's quirk and run with it, but he knew Aizawa wouldn't want that. So as the countdown started, Izuku activated tempo at the 1-second mark to make sure he reacted as soon as possible, and wouldn't you know, the literal millisecond the countdown hit 0, Izuku turned off tempo and jettisoned himself into the finish line with an air cannon. 2.45 seconds. Not bad, he thought to himself. Bakugo, coming in behind him with 3.15 seconds, was visibly angry, but just walked off. Momo ended up getting 4.05 seconds by 5% leaping multiple times until she got herself across the 50m line. The second exercise was easy enough for both Izuku and Momo. Izuku used Death Arm's super strength and Jetstream together to literally crush the grip machine, resulting in another theoretically infinite, while Momo used 5% again to get a respectable 340 kilograms. The person who managed to beat her was the massive octopus-looking boy who managed to get a score of 540 kilograms by using 3 of his hands to pull at the machine. The third exercise was another easy one. It was time for a standing long jump. Izuku just jet-streamed himself across the entire thing for a maximum score, while Momo used a quick burst of 10% and created another wingsuit to clear it, just like she had during the entrance exam. She was getting better at pulling out bursts of 10%. It didn't hurt her nearly as much anymore. People were commenting on the black lightning that seemed to ooze from her. It seems most had assumed that was her quirk and not creation, which in all seriousness made sense to her. She was going to need a reason as to why she had super strength, maybe something about internally using the lightning to boost her muscle strength. She could just say her quirk made black lighting while creating, she thought. After all, it's not like any of these people had ever seen her quirk before. When the repeated sidesteps came up, Izuku knew he had this. Activating one palm at a time, he just fired himself left to right over and over again. He had managed a pretty good score on this. 35 times in 30 seconds. Momo, while also doing well, didn't do as well. After all, with only access to 5%, she didn't have the raw speed All Might did. She only got a score of 20 jumps within the 30-second span, but she was still doing much better than people like Invisi Girl, who only got 10 jumps during the 30 seconds. Izuku and Uraraka were excluded from the next test, already having received an infinity score by nature of them both having 0 gravity, and as Aizawa said it, repeating an action just to see it again was irrational. When Momo stepped up to the plate, She activated 10% of her quirk and threw it as hard as she could, managing to make it land a good 300 meters away. God, she couldn't wait until she managed to unlock more of her quirk. She made a mental note then and there to meditate with her quirk later tonight. The sit-ups test was interesting as Izuku figured out he was able to leave his palms open during it. So he just blasted himself back and forth with Jetstream, getting an amazing 204 sit-ups during the 2 minutes of allowed time. He also, however, wanted to vomit. Momo, on the other hand, let 5% out on her back muscles, using that to greatly strengthen herself during the test. She managed to get 102 sit-ups in the same amount of time. The seated toe touch was the first time his quirks wouldn't be able to help him. After all, none of them increased his flexibility. He ended doing rather poorly in this test, getting like 11th place. Momo, on the other hand, was apparently incredibly flexible. She managed to get second, coming behind only Invisi Girl. The final test was the long-distance run. It was a 4-kilometer run, 8 laps around the track they had in front of them. Momo, to her credit, ended up making a bike, and with 5% added to her legs, she was able to easily outpace everyone. Everyone, that is, besides Ida and Izuku, both somehow keeping pace with the person who had super strength and a vehicular advantage. She figured Izuku would keep up, but not to this degree. However, it seems she had seriously underestimated Ida's speed. Even with just propulsion in his legs, they were all easily going around 50 miles per hour. It ended up being a photo finish with Momo taking the top spot, Ida in second, and Izuku in third. However, they were so far ahead of the rest of the pack that it took minutes before everybody else reached the finish line, most looking like they were dead from exhaustion. Good thing she was used to that, Momo thought. Moments later, Aizawa announced the results of the test. 1. Izuku Midoriya. 2. Katsuki Bakugo. 3. Tenya Ida. 4. Yaoyorozu Momo. 5. Fumikichi Tokoyami. 6. Ashido Mina. 7. Shiro Hanta. 8. Tsuyu Azui. 9. Mizo Shoji. 10. Yurariko Ochako. 11. Koji Koda. 12. Rikido Sato. 13. Yuga Aoyama. 14. Shudo Todoroki. 15. Denki Kaminari. 16. Kyokujiro. 17. Ojiro Mashireo. 18. Ejiro Kirishima. 19. Toru Hagakure. 20. Shinso Hitoshi. Shinso saw his name at the bottom and knew this was it. His dream of becoming a hero would be crushed. However, it seemed as though some god was looking out for him, and his teacher spoke. By the way, that was a rational deception to make you all work your hardest. If you think your position on this list is undeserved, work hard and improve. We can't all be like Wonder Boy over here, but that isn't an excuse to avoid working out, Aizawa said as he stared at Izuku. Shudo, however, was furious. Not only was his quirk useless during this exam, in fact both halves were, but this upstart fire user did better than him. He refused to be outdone by anyone who even slightly resembled Endeavor. He would have his revenge as soon as the chance was given. Shinso was just internally praising whatever deity had saved him. Momo was sad she got fourth, but she's not too surprised. She is only using 1/20th of her power after all. It would come with time, she thought. Make sure you all collect a syllabus from the room, and then head back to the dorms. You all are done for the day, Aizawa said, dismissing them. Izuku decided to wait for Momo outside of the class. He wanted to walk back with her after all, and to congratulate her for doing so well. When she finally walked out of the room, Izuku was so ecstatic to greet her. He took a glance around, making sure no one was looking before he pecked her on the cheek. How's the new number 1 doing? Momo was blushing furiously. She didn't hate it, but it had come out of nowhere. Come on, Aizu, we're in public. Can't this wait until later? Nope, he said, popping the pea. Come on, walk with me. Everyone else is already heading back anyway. But before they could walk off, Ida and Urarika both charged them. Midoriya, it seems I have massively misjudged you. Not only did you manage to get multiple scores of infinity, you even got another student a score of infinity. That is the height of selflessness, he said while looking at the gravity girl, before turning back to the raven-haired girl. And you did amazingly on the scores. I thought your quirk was some form of super strength, but you were able to just pull things out of the air. Please do tell me how your quirk works. Yeah, plus the black lightning was really cool. Uraraka said, chiming in. Wow, this guy is really serious, and she's just really excitable, Izuku thought. Momo replied first, having already realized she needed to make something up to make her quirk more believable. My quirk is kinda weird. The black lightning I make just seems to bend to my will. If I ask it to do something, it just does it. If I want a bike, it makes a bike. Although I do need to know the chemical makeup of the thing I'm making, and I can only make non-living things. As for myself and the super strength, it's a similar thing. I just think I want to be strong, and the lightning does it. I honestly haven't thought of a good name for my quirk yet, she said aloud, realizing that calling it creation no longer fit it. It was Uraraka, surprisingly enough, who responded first. Call it Indra, the god responsible for war, thunder, lightning, creation. The god of gods. Everyone around was kind of not prepared for the intensity that she was apparently capable of. That is a good name. I suppose I shall call my quirk Indra from now on. Well, there you have it, Ida, she said while smiling at the gravity girl. Well, who wants to get lunch before we head back to dorms? Uraraka asked everyone present, and they all agreed. Fast friends, it seemed. She briefly wondered if this is what it would be like having someone who liked her for her. Well, besides Izuku, of course. Maybe she wouldn't have to wait long before finding out. Meanwhile, back at the dorms. That shitty fucking DKU. Of course he would twist them around his finger. He probably forced that girl to be with him too. God, I am going to kill that monster when I'm given the chance. Bakugo was sitting in his room, absolutely livid. How was he going to show them that a demon was lurking amongst them? He clearly had the school staff believing in his bull, and the other extras were quickly following. He couldn't let that thing remain a danger to society for much longer. He wondered, what if a training accident occurred? That could be the perfect way to get rid of him. Izuku woke the next day feeling very warm and with the strange sensation of being hugged by a warm object. Oh right, his current very cuddly girlfriend was in bed next to him. It had been around midnight when Izuku heard a knock on his door. He was both surprised and happy to see Momo standing outside his door. Apparently, she had just woken up from a nightmare and wanted to be with someone. Izuku, of course, relented and let her into the room. Back to the present, however, Izuku clearly had not thought this through. Aizawa literally sleeps 3 doors down the hallway. He didn't like what he was about to do, but he needed to get Momo back to her room fast. But then he looked down at her sleeping face, and it was absolutely adorable. It'd be the equivalent of moving a sleeping cat off your lap. Thankfully, his movement during his period of duress had seemed to wake the sleeping girl. Aizu, go back to sleep, we still have like an hour. Wait a minute, did she just say Aizu? Oh god, it was real. She really had spent last night in his bed. Okay, she needed to stay calm. So she did the only natural thing possible and immediately started freaking out. She had managed to leap from the bed at ungodly speeds and was out the door before any more words could be said. Well, that just happened, Izuku thought to himself. Oh well, there went my plan to take her down the side of the building using Jetstream and silence. Hopefully no one saw that. Someone had indeed seen that. Izuku, to his credit, got dressed and ended up in the classroom a good 15 minutes early. Izuku noted that Momo was not yet there. He briefly wondered if she was okay, but then saw she managed to slip quietly into the room a few moments later. Neither wanted to address the elephant in the room in a public setting like this, so they just took to ignoring each other. Aizawa stepped into the room a minute before class was supposed to start and just told everyone to read the syllabus while he slept. The day passed fairly quickly. Present Mike taught English, Midnight taught art history, Cementos taught modern literature, and lastly Ectoplasm taught math. Honestly, Izuku was surprised by how normal the day was. This was in spite of the fact that every class was taught by a pro hero. When lunch came around, Ida, Uraraka, Momo, and Izuku sat together again, but this time, Hugh joined them. Her quirky frog-like nature was certainly interesting, but what was more interesting was just how brutally honest she was. If she noticed or thought something, she said it with zero hesitation. For example, how bad Uraraka's breath was. Apparently, she had forgotten to brush her teeth this morning. He had never seen the poor gravity girl so embarrassed. Then again, he had only known the girl for 2 days. Izuku had finally managed to get a moment alone to talk to Momo on the way back to class. The two of them hanging back and letting the other 3 talk to each other. So are you okay? Izuku asked the jet black-haired teen. Yeah, sorry about this morning. I just kind of freaked out. I was acting like a scared child last night, she said, hanging her head low. Izuku just looked to the side while he said, "Hey, if you want we can do that again sometime." Trying to dodge her gaze while he said that, she stared at him for a brief moment before whispering back into his ear, "I'd love that, Izukin." She said it in just the right way so as to send a tingle down his spine. With that, Izuku nearly sprinted to rejoin the group in front of him. He was definitely not able to handle her teasing yet. Back in class, everyone was talking animatedly to each other, the loudest being a spiky red-haired figure. He was talking to Tsuyu next to him. "Yeah, the syllabus said we are doing hero training, but it just left the name blank. It's really weird," said the spiky-haired figure. "Izuku should probably get his name later if he's friends with Tsu." It was at that moment that Izuku and some of the other students heard it. Very loud, very long footsteps before they stopped at the door to the classroom briefly before it slammed open and the figure of All Might in his buff form stormed in. "I have come through the door like a normal person," the number one shouting as he did. Izuku just responded with a quip, All Might sensei, that isn't how normal people come through a door." He watched as the man took a step backwards, closing the door, then quickly reopening it. "I have come through the door like a weird person." He shouted this time, and Izuku and a couple of the other students couldn't help but laugh at that, the rest of the class being too shocked to respond. Izuku heard Tsu make a comment about how that was his Silver Age costume. He was kind of impressed that someone else was as much of a fanboy as him. Hero Basic Training. It's basically how to Hero 101. No time to dally, we shall be starting off with this. It's time for battle training. All Might said, holding up a card that had battle written on it. Bakugo in front of Izuku looked happier than Izuku could ever remember the boy being. "And for that you'll need these." A bunch of slits in the wall started opening, revealing cases with the numbers 120 written on them. "Are there hero costumes?" Izuku realized after the boy with the weird circle-shaped elbows shouted behind him. Everyone was told to change and meet All Might at ground beta once they were done. Well, you bunch of zygotes. They do say that clothes make the man, and today you are all officially heroes in training, and I must say you do look the part now," All Might said with his usual fervor. Izuku's costume was a fairly unassuming one, just a black hoodie, black cargo shorts, and a mask with the infinity symbol it. After all, Izuku wanted to be an underground hero. What better way than to never show your face? Momo, on the other hand, what she was wearing could barely even be described as a costume. It was just a red leotard that barely covered anything. Izuku knew Momo needed to show her skin in order to use her quirk, but when you take it this far, you start to wonder if she might also be an exhibitionist. Izuku was going to talk to her after this. Ida spoke next. "Sir, I noticed we are at ground beta. Are we doing battle with robots again?" "No, you shall be moving on to step 2. It's time for anti-personnel indoor training. Villain battles are most commonly seen outdoors. However, the most vile villains are going to appear indoors, lurking in the shadows. A smart villain hides, a dumb one flaunts after all," All Might responded. "You will be splitting into teams of 2 and fighting each other. One team shall be the heroes, and the other shall be the villains." "So no basic training?" said Tsu. "Practical experience is the best teacher, as I always say." Before anyone else could cut him off, he whipped out what appeared to be a script. "Listen up. Here's the deal. The villains shall be hiding a nuclear weapon somewhere inside their hideout. The heroes will have to go in and secure the weapon or defeat the villains within the allotted time to win. The villains must protect the weapon or defeat the heroes within that time to win. Teams will be determined by random drawings." Ida cut the hero off. "Sir, is it really best that we determine this in such a haphazard way?" Izuku was the one to respond, letting Ida know that often pro heroes don't get to choose their partners in emergency situations. "I see. I apologize for getting ahead of myself," he said, bowing deeply. "It is fine, young Ida, but let's just get to it. Come draw a lot in class order." He held out the box for people to come take one. The teams ended up being: Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Shinso Hitoshi. Team B, Shudo Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Team C, Momo Yaoyorozu and Ochako Uraraka. Team D, Bakugo Katsuki and Ida Tenya. Team E, Mina Ashido and Yuga Aoyama. Team F, Koji Koda and Rikido Sato. Team G, Kaminari Denki and Kyoka Jairu. Team H, Siyu Azui and Tokoyami Fumikichi. Team I, Ojiro Mashireo and Toru Hagakure. Team J, Ejiro Kirishima and Shiro Hanta. Now for the first match, we have Team A versus Team D, with A being the heroes and D being the villains. Both teams will have 15 minutes to prepare. Izuku looked over to Bakugo, who looked ecstatic about the fact they would be fighting so soon. "I'll well guess that just means I get to beat into him, that he's weaker than me." He looked around briefly to find his partner Shinso had already started walking to the starting point. Izuku quickly ran over to catch up with him. "Hey, you're the one that asked me the question about villainous quirks last night." Shinso merely nodded at him. "So what's your quirk? I kinda need to know if we're going to make a plan, although I do already kind of have one." The boy hesitated before responding. "Brainwashing. I can make anyone listen to my orders if they respond to a question of mine." He looked at the broccoli-headed boy, waiting for the fear that always arrived after he let someone know what his quirk was. It never came. Wow, that's amazing. That can be used in so many situations. Like you can end a hostage situation with a knock-knock joke. Are there any other limitations? Can you force people to go to sleep? Can you make people forget things? What about forcing people to like things they didn't previously? Shinso just stared at this boy. What the fuck, he thought as he listened to the rambling of the boy continue. "So you were being serious yesterday? You don't believe in villainous quirks?" Attempting to stop the boy mid-rant, Izuku just started laughing before tapping the boy on the arm. "Boom, you have no quirk now. Am I a villain?" he said as he slapped the arm on the boy again. Shinso shuddered as he felt his quirk return. If people were afraid of him, they must have been absolutely terrified of this boy. He hadn't even felt his quirk leave. Imagine if this kid wanted to be a villain, he could just walk through a crowd taking everyone's quirks as he went. "Just let me say, thank God you aren't," he said, shuddering again as that thought left him. "Alright, so what's the plan?" Shinso asked. "Well, as you can tell, Bakugo absolutely despises me, so he's going to be gunning for me. We have 15 minutes to get the bomb, and I'm fairly certain we can take Bakugo down together fairly quickly, so let's stay together. I'll use a few of my quirks to keep a lookout for him, and once he's taken care of, I'll use dark vision to find the bomb. Ida should be guarding it, which will make it easy for me to spot. We can probably provoke Bakugo into responding to me, so can I borrow your quirk for that?" Shinso just frowned back at him. "Bakugo unfortunately knows my quirk. I used it on him yesterday when he started screaming at me. Sorry, Midoriya." "No worries. That was just the easiest way to win. I'm fairly certain I can handle him regardless," he said as he smiled back at the boy. It was kind of unnerving having someone talk back to him, so casually. Shinso thought. No one has ever done that before. Not even his parents. And he definitely wanted to try using his quirk like Izuku suggested later. Maybe Izuku would let him try it on him? His thoughts were cut short as a voice carried across his intercoms. "Alright, your prep time is up. Heroes, you may begin your infiltration now." Izuku thought to himself this was the first time he could fight with all his quirks. He made a mental check running through all of them as he prepared himself. He felt it. He felt strong. All quirks online. Let's do this all for one. He activated dark vision, tempo, and zoomed to find the room that had the bomb. It appeared to be on the 5th floor, and Bakugo was rapidly approaching them from his position on the 2nd floor. He cut his visions off as the eye strain reached him. "Bakugo's on the 2nd floor about to rush us. The bomb is either on the 4th or 5th floor being guarded by Ida." Shinso had just been staring at the boy while he did this. Wow, no wonder he got in on super recommendation. He identified the objectives and the enemy's location within 5 seconds of entering the building. "Want to wait here and ambush him?" Shinso asked. "Now let's keep walking forward. I'll use only dark vision for a bit to reduce the strain on my eyes, but we'll know when he gets close even without zoom." They walked quickly towards the stairs to the next floor when Izuku noticed a yellow silhouette waiting behind a corner. He paused, holding his hand up and pointing at the corner while looking at Shinso behind him. "Kakin, you know, if you hadn't been a dick yesterday, you would know you can't hide from me." Bakugo walked out from behind the corner. Of course, the little monster has a quirk that can let him see through walls. "Who did you take that from?" he said, spitting at the floor. "Oh man, they could have used Shinso's quirk after all. Oh well. You know, just a second-degree murderer. The usual," Izuku said as sarcastically as possible before jet streaming straight at him. Bakugo was surprised when Izuku suddenly shot towards him, but on instinct Bakugo pulled back his right arm to lead with his usual opener. Of course he fell for it. Izuku sighed. He had honestly been hoping for more of a fight than this. But if Bakugo is going to be this obtuse, might as well kick him while he's down. Izuku grabbed the outstretched fist before an explosion could be let off and used Bakugo's momentum in order to throw him over his shoulder. Bakugo landed roughly thudding against the ground. Izuku quickly stole his quirk while Bakugo was reeling from the pain, then held his right hand palm facing Bakugo before speaking. You know, I'm actually kind of disappointed, Kaken. That was too easy. He just fired a blast from his right, knocking Bakugo out instantly. He reached into his pocket, grabbed a spool of capture tape, and wrapped it around the unconscious boy. Shinso was dumbstruck. Midoriya just beat the person who got first in the entrance exams in 2 seconds flat. Hell, the only reason Shinso got in was rescue points. He had managed to keep some weird kid with grape hair from getting crushed by a zero-pointer. But Bakugo only had combat points, and he still got first. That same person just got absolutely demolished. How strong was Midoriya? Bakugo Katsuki captured, 1 villain down. Ran over the intercom. Whelp, 1 down, 1 to go. You ready, Shinso? Izuku said, smiling at him. Yeah, let's go. Shinso had been scared before, but now he was horrified when he thought of having to fight the person before him. Oh, and I got explosion until the end of this, but I don't think it's going to help much. You want to handle Ida? I could, but I want to let you get some credit too. Yeah, he doesn't know my quirk. I got it, Shinso said, nodding. They both calmly walked to the 5th floor. Izuku looked at this watch. Good, they had 5 minutes left. Once they got outside the room Ida was in, Izuku let out a loud explosion, hoping to startle Ida. Shinso just shouted with the fakest voice he could make. It's over, villain. We have already defeated your partner. But why? And that was it. Shinso walked over and touched the bomb. Bomb secured, hero team wins, shouted All Might over the intercom. Shinso let Ida out of his control while Bakugo was being led away by stretcher drones. It seems I have been bested today. Shinso, you have a great quirk, Ida said while bowing. You may have gotten me this time, but next time I shall be more careful. Shinso just shrugged back at the overly zealous boy bowing in front of him. Izuku cut in after that. Let's go, guys. They are probably waiting for us before discussing the match. Welcome back, you three. And before you ask, young Bakugo will be fine. He should already be on his way back here. He only needed a light recovery after all. All Might said with his usual bravado from the front of class. Speak of the devil. Now we can continue with the after-action report. So who in this match was MVP? A lot of the class was shouting Izuku's name, but he was busy giving Bakugo's quirk back. You know, if you took the time to learn about my quirks, it wouldn't have ended that quickly. Get over yourself, Bakugo, and you'll go far, Izuku said to the spiky-haired teen. Bakugo just glared at him and walked off. And why is young Midoriya MVP? All Might asked the class. Momo was the first to respond. She didn't even raise her hand. She just started talking. Midoriya is the MVP for many reasons. He was the one who created their plan. He managed to identify how his enemy would attack. He knew of their quirks and weaknesses. He's the one who located the bomb. He absolutely crushed Bakugo in a 1v1, and he even gave Shinso a part in the plan at the end so he could get credit. Not only that, but he was brutally efficient. He had accounted for everything the enemy could have possibly thrown at him. For all those reasons, Izuku deserves MVP. There were many mixed responses to that tirade. She just went on. All Might looked shocked. Bakugo was furious when he heard how he got wrecked by Deku, and Mina was just thinking about the part where she used Midori's first name. Well, yes. Everything is as you say, young Yaoyorozu. That is indeed the reason why young Midoriya was MVP. All Might was so proud of his 2 successors at that moment. Alright, next is Team B versus Team I. Team B, you are the heroes. Finally, Shudo had his chance to show off. Midoriya might be strong, and he didn't even use his fire to win that last match, but that's just because his opponents were so weak. He's going to end this instantly and prove he's better. And prove that he did by freezing the entire building in seconds, both immobilizing the villain team and instantly securing the bomb. Everyone back in the recording room was shocked. They all wanted to see Midoriya versus Todoroki now, and we're all wondering how that would turn out. The matches proceeded quickly until the last matchup was declared. After that exhilarating performance by Team G, it's now time for the final matchup. Team H versus Team C. Team H will be the heroes. Take your places, your prep time has begun. All Might was hoping this match didn't take too long. He was running out of time. Momo looked over at Uraraka and then back to the bomb. Thank God they were on defense that gave them a huge advantage. Her boyfriend being such a huge nerd was about to give them a serious boost. Thank you, Prism 6 Siege. Uraraka, you ever played any tactical video games? Uraraka was surprised. She didn't think Yaoyorozu was the type to play them. Sorry, no, I don't really play video games, she said while scratching the back of her head. That is quite all right, but I do have a plan. We're going to play defense and just make them unable to enter the room. Neither of our opponents have anything that explosive or damaging, so it should be quite easy to do so. My quirk takes more fat the bigger the object is, but it doesn't care about weight. Have you heard of osmium? She said, looking at the wall with a smile. No, I can't say that I have. Uraraka was feeling really dumb now. Both Yaoyorozu and Midoriya were so much smarter than her. She grimaced. Well, let me introduce you to the densest material on the planet. Momo said this while creating a sheet of osmium that hit the floor with a thud. She had found she could substitute the energy of one for all instead of fat, so she basically had access to infinite resources. Use your float to pick these up, and we're going to line all the walls and the door with them. Then we just sit back and wait for an easy victory. Uraraka didn't think it would be as easy as that, but when she went to float the massive sheet of metal in front of her, but she noticed that it almost hit her weight limit. How heavy were these? When Momo saw the shock on the girl's face, she gestured mechanically, stating the material's properties. Osmium, the world's densest material, weighs 22 grams per cubic centimeter, or roughly half a pound per centimeter. Momo smirked as she did the math. The sheet of osmium she made should weigh roughly 2,500 pounds. I'm going to use lighter material, so we can line the walls as well. We don't want the floor caving in after all. The rest of the sheets covering the walls were made of carbon steel and could easily hold back any impact Tou or Tokoimi were capable of. She didn't have enough time to cover the floor, and she couldn't realistically cover the ceiling, so even with float this would have to do. Once she was done with that, she made 2 tranquilizer guns, handing one to Uraraka. In case they somehow get and shoot them with one of these, and they'll be out for the next 10 minutes. She then explained how reloading them worked and handed her some extra bullets. The guns ended up being unnecessary, however, as after 5 minutes they heard someone try the door, then the banging started. That lasted for a good 8 minutes before the hero team just unceremoniously gave up. Well, I guess that's it then. Knowing when to give up is an important trait for a hero as well. Villain team wins. Uraraka floated the osmium sheet out of the way to find the other 2 heroes just sitting on the floor, exhausted and bruised. She then looked around, noticing how damaged the walls were. Apparently, they had been very persistent. If it makes you guys feel any better, I basically did nothing too. That was all, Yaoyorozu. She looked dejectedly at the floor after that. The bird person was the only one who responded. Truly a mad banquet of darkness. Back in the observation room, everyone had gathered. Well, I would ask who the MVP was, but it's pretty clear in this one. Congratulations, young Yaoyorozu. The ingenious usage of your quirk as well as your extreme knowledge of the elements have served you well. Osmium, was it? These are the reasons for your team's victory. I'm proud of all of you. Take your failures and use them to strengthen yourselves. And with that, you are dismissed. I am leaving like a hero would. All Might said as he dashed down the hallway. Well, that was abrupt, Izuku thought. Everyone else had already begun to file out, but Momo hung back after she saw Izuku waving to her. Hey Momo, great job. You've gotten so much better with your quirk. I remember when you just used your quirk to make metal sticks. He smirked, remembering the first time Momo told him about her quirk and what she could do with it. Momo was blushing at that. Come on, don't tease me about that. I was 10 all right. Yeah, I know. Want to go get dinner? Izuku noticed her brighten up immediately after that. Yeah, I may have overused my quirk a bit. I'm starving, let's go. And off they went. Unbeknownst to them, they had a stalker in the form of a pink-haired alien girl. Meanwhile, Bakugo was angrily stomping down the hallway back to the dorms. He couldn't believe it. That stupid 3D printer was right. I got fucking destroyed. I lost in 2 seconds. How the fuck did Deku get this fucking strong? I couldn't take him, let alone fucking icy hot. His ruminations were interrupted when a very large, very fast man jumped in front of him. I am here, young Bakugo. You should not let your pride destroy you. Pride is a good thing, but you must realize that here you are no longer special. Where you came from you were great, but that was the small time, my boy. Everyone here is a potential hero of the greatest quality. Bakugo was fucking pissed to say the least. Hearing All Might talk down to him was downright insulting. The fuck does that matter, All Might, huh? I couldn't win. I got fucking destroyed by DKU of all people. IT wasn't even a fight, it was a fucking slaughter. What does it matter if you don't win? Also, that was the core of the matter, All Might thought. Young Bakugo, you will not win every fight. Even I have lost fights before, believe it or not. As I said earlier, everyone here is in the big leagues. If your loss bothers you this much, then improve and win the next time. Fuck you, All Might. I'll prove I'ma be the best, even better than you. Fuck. Bakugo screamed at All Might as he left. Well, at least his competitive spirit has been lit. That counts for something, Toshi. It was the next day of school, and class was just about to start. Izuku was looking forward to seeing the eclectic man that happened to be their teacher. He was kinda weird and super strict, but overall Izuku really liked Aizawa-sensei. The man in question entered the room, slamming the door behind him with a bang a few moments later. Quiet down, class. There was a pause as the class quieted. 7.5 seconds. Good, you are improving already. For today's homeroom, we will be reviewing the battle training you did with All Might yesterday. The main points I'd like to hit are these, as you will be doing hero training later today as well. Bakugo, don't get so upset, you are not a weak student. You got first in the entrance exams after all. Todoroki, good control with your ice as usual, but I haven't seen you use your flames once yet. Come talk to me after school ends. 2. Tokoyami, you both just pounded on a metal slab for 8 minutes straight, and then gave up without even trying to do something else. That is the literal definition of insanity. Next time, try other options before giving up. There will be many times as a hero where giving up is simply not an option. The two heroes in question looked downcast after that. Aizawa continued, if you weren't happy with your results, use this failure to work harder. Now you will be doing something important today. Normally, you would be selecting a class president and a vice president, but as you know, Problem Child over here is already your class president. It was one of the terms placed on him, Principal Nedzu, if you're wondering. So you will just be selecting a vice president. Do it however you want. You got till lunch. If you need me, well, don't. The man quickly climbed back into his yellow sleeping bag. Everyone instantly started raising their hands and screaming, pick me. Even Bakugo, surprisingly. Izuku would have thought that he would hate the idea of being underneath him. Ida was the one broke the chaos by screaming loud enough to overpower everyone else. We should do this like heroes and decide electorally. The person who is given the most votes deserves the spot clearly. The ear-jack girl spoke next. Won't everyone just vote for themselves? If they manage to earn the trust of their fellow students by the third day, then they more than earned the position. Ida said emphatically. All right, we're doing this via election. Izuku said as he took a tissue box from the front and turned it into a makeshift ballot box. When I walk by, drop your vote into this. After 15 minutes, the votes were tallied by Izuku, with the final scores being Yaoyorozu, 7. Ida, 3. Bakugo for class president, 1. Oh, he was trying to impeach me, Izuku realized. Shuji, 1. Todoroki, 1. Koda, 1. Sato, 1. Jiru, 1. Kaminari, 1. Ashido, 1. Wait a minute, why are there only 18 votes? Izuku didn't vote for obvious reasons, but someone else didn't vote either. Hey, who didn't vote? I only count 18 votes. Izuku said, scanning the room. Whoever it was apparently didn't want to reveal themselves. All right, well, if you don't want to vote, that's fine. It wouldn't have changed who won anyway. Izuku said while shrugging. Congrats, Ms. VP. Momo was mind blown. She hadn't even voted for herself, and Izuku didn't vote either. Almost half the class wanted her to be the vice president. Well, I accept wholeheartedly, she said while walking up to the front of the room. Bakugo's outburst was next. How come none of you fucks voted for me? And fuck no, is DKU going to be president over me? Honestly, Izuku was expecting the boy to lunge at him. Why, you're kinda an asshole, Bakugo, you know that, said the purple-haired girl with jacks for ears. The fuck you say to me, extra? Bakugo screamed at her. This time Kaminari stepped in. Yeah, that right there, dude. We've known you for like 3 days, and even we can tell your personality is steeped in a pile of dog shit. Enough. Aizawa jumped from his sleeping bag, quirk flaring. If you've decided already, remain quiet and study your notes until the bell rings. No more words were spoken until the bell. Aizawa-sensei, is it okay if I do something before everyone leaves? It's kind of important so I can use my quirk on the class safely. Aizawa just sighed. What is it, problem child? I just wanted to check who I could give an extra quirk to safely. If I try to give one to someone who can, it could cause permanent damage. Of course it could. Aizawa thought even more issues with the child. He just nodded at Izuku. Izuku, taking that as confirmation, walked over to the door leading out of the room. All right, everyone. Just give me a handshake on the way out so I can check if I can safely give you an extra quirk. It could be quite beneficial to know down the line. Everyone did as they were told and lined up to leave the room. The first was Ida. Yeah, Ida, you can handle one more, but I won't risk giving someone 3 quirks. It's too risky. The rest of the line went as such. Ida, yes. Bakugo begrudgingly let Izuku touch him once Aizawa told him to do it, yes. Todoroki, no. Izuku wondered if it was because he basically already had 2 quirks. Shinso, yes. Koda, yes. Shoji, yes. Momo, no, but that was to be expected after what happened with All Might. Ashido, yes. Shiro, yes. Uraraka, no. Sato, yes. Aoyama, yes. Tokoyami, no. Kaminari, yes. Kinda. You probably shouldn't risk this one. Ojiro, yes. Jiro, yes. Tsuno? Kirishima, yes. He handed the sheet of paper to Aizawa. Roughly more than half the class could receive a quirk from Izuku. That was about what he was expecting if he were being honest. Anything else, problem child? No thank you, Aizawa-sensei, unless you want to know if you can handle another quirk. Aizawa just shrugged. When Izuku went out to shake his hands, he found that familiar emptiness. Yes, Aizawa-sensei, you can. And with that, Izuku walked out the door only to find Momo waiting to ambush him. Hey, Ms. Prez, he said as he winked at her. No, stop. You're not allowed to wink. She started blushing. She was definitely not used to him teasing her. I would have voted for you, by the way. Looks like I didn't need to, though, as they made an Excel-len. An alarm started blaring right at that moment. They had no idea what it meant until Aizawa burst out the door behind them. You two go find the other students in the lunch hall and bring them back to the class. That alarm means there is an intruder in the building. Your quirks are allowed, go. With that, Aizawa sprinted off down the hallway in the opposite direction of the lunchroom. Upon hearing quirks were authorized, immediately started jet streaming down the hall. He reached the cafeteria in record time just to find the rest of the student body were stampeding down the hall toward Izuku. Reached deep and pulled as much of Jetstream as he could push the crowd back. Izuku took a deep breath and then roared, hoping to channel the fear his father was capable of. Calm down, are you not students of UA? After a moment, the stampede below stopped. Izuku returned to his normal voice and just shouted as loudly as he could. Return to class immediately, the lot of you, and in an orderly fashion this time. 15 minutes later, back in the classroom. All accounted for, Aizawa-sensei. Izuku said to the teacher. This is why I hate the media, Aizawa said as he facepalmed. Just go back to lunch, it will be extended by 30 minutes to compensate for lost time. The second lunch was not nearly as eventful as the first. When it came time for hero training after lunch, they found that All Might was teaching it again. He strode into the room with his usual bravado. Hello, students. After that brief interruption we had earlier, it has been decided that the training we had for today will be pushed back to tomorrow and the training for tomorrow pushed to today due to time constraints. Grab your costumes and follow me to Ground Gamma. Izuku hadn't had much time to explore this place yet, but Ground Gamma was incredible. A veritable maze of pipes and factories. I wonder what we'll be doing here today. Today, class, we will be working on stealth operations. Fights can be decided in an instant if you can get the drop on your target, and vice versa. There will be 15 heroes and 5 villains. There are 2 ways to win for each side. The heroes can win by either catching all of the villains or by finding and securing the villains' intel, which will be held by one of the villains, and it will look like this. All Might said as he held up a briefcase. The villains can win by either catching all the heroes or if the villain with the briefcase manages to escape the city within the time limit. All Might pulled out another script. The plot is as follows. The heroes have received a tip about a villain meetup, where they plan to hand off data containing the location of a large cache of drugs and weapons. Unfortunately for the heroes, the villains at the meeting were tipped off just as the heroes were about to deploy. The villains will have 30 minutes to escape via the exit gate to my left, or the police will arrive and encircle the area, effectively cutting off the escape route. Any questions? Kaminari raised his hand. Isn't it almost impossible for the villains to win here, All Might? Not at all, young Kaminari. Ground Gamma is a maze in of itself. Trying to find and locate one individual person will not be an easy task. Hence the stealth part of this training. There were no more questions after that. Good. Now Midoriya, Bakugo, Jiraiya, Ishido, and Hagakure. You will be the villain team. Please head to location shown on the map. The rest of you are the heroes. Once everyone is in position, we will begin. After they had arrived at the designated spot, Izuku spoke up. Okay, so I think I figured out why we are a team. Hagakure and I can specialize in stealth. Jiraiya and I can specialize in long-range detection. Ishido can quietly walk through walls by melting them. And I think Bakugo was meant to be a weakness, and I don't mean that as an insult. Explosions aren't exactly quiet. Fuck you, DKU. Say that shit to my face. Bakugo not liking being told he was a weakness. Jiraiya chimed in next. Please don't shout, Bakugo, we don't need to let them know where we are. Well, Izuku hated that he had to do this. Bakugo, I'm only letting you borrow this until the end of the exam. What the fuck you mean borrow? And Izuku slapped him on the arm. Try it out. It completely silences out any noise. However, the more noise it cancels, the faster you will feel the effects of overuse, which is temporary deafness. Use this when you absolutely need to make an explosion, and it should negate some of the problems we're gonna have. I don't want this shit, take it back. Bakugo screaming the whole time. Shut up, Bakugo. Again, Jiraiya trying to silence him. Let's get back on track. Hagakure, do you have any ideas? Ishido's turn to try and help sort out this mess. I don't know, honestly. I wish I could just turn the briefcase invisible. She pouted as she said that. Deku, take this shitty fucking quirk back. Bakugo was still irate about having a quirk forced onto him. You're keeping it until this is over, Kakin. No, but seriously, we're wasting time. Alright, I think the best way to do this is to obviously escape with the briefcase, because 5v15s are not especially good odds, but they will definitely leave a guard for the gate. I think our best bet is to have 1 to 2 people cause a distraction to buy the person with the briefcase time to get to the gate. I think either me or Hagakure should be the briefcase carrier, but I can make for a better distraction, so let's give Hagakure the case. Izuku paused for a moment before continuing with his plan. With all that in mind, here's what we're gonna do. Bakugo, I know you want to rampage, and that's just what you'll do. Get in, take someone out, disappear. Hit and run tactics, be loud to bring them in, then silent to take them out. They are going to assume I have the brief